to Chew the Chat podcast.
Get into that today. So firstly, I'll introduce you to Chew the Chat podcast, Rich Jones.
Cool.
Rich, you've written a book, Charlie 4 Kilo.
Yes.
I'll send it over to that camera, which I've started reading. And I came across you via Chris Thrall's Brought the T-Shirt podcast, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed. I love what Chris is doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's
He's
really,
a hell of a character.
Yeah, he's interesting. He's got a love, and he's got a great rapport with people.
Yeah.
And even though yours was on video, you guys were on the Skype, I still felt like I was engaged with it. And it's a great podcast that people should get over there, check it out, especially vets.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is what you are. You're an ex-veteran who left your role in the military, stepped out into civilian life. And as we hear over and over and over again, find it difficult to find a place, to find sanity, and in many ways.
Yeah. I think it's that sense of belonging when you, I think, no matter how long you've been in, when you go into training, it's such a hard-hitting sort of, it's like conditioning, I guess, to take you from a civilian and absolutely hammer you to be trained in to be a soldier or RAF, whichever one you're going to go into. And I think you find that it's such a powerful process that when you become that part of that a cog or part of that machine, that it's very hard when you do leave to replace that sense of belonging. And you go through so much together. When everyone's received the same training, they've been to the same places, you kind of got your new family. So when you get out, you're kind of totally lost, which can be very difficult. So
how did it all start for you then? Take us back, take us up to the day where you write this book. And again, I'll just brief quickly, as you allude to, when you did get out, you tried to find that place and meaning and community, and it led you to an equally dark place, maybe.
Yeah, I think when I left, I trained in close protection. So that was my ideal job, to go out and do the bodyguard work and surveillance. And there was some work, and this was in 1995. So there was a lot of work involved in that. But the trouble is it was all overseas. And I wasn't really ready to take that plunge and leave Bristol again. When I've just got out of the army, all I wanted to do was to be a part of, sort of rebuild myself in the community.
And did you have family, Rich, to come back to?
Yeah, well, I'd actually, one of the reasons I left the army was because I'd met a girl, and she kind of tipped the scales. I thought, shall I get in? Shall I stay in? Shall I get out? And I thought, no, I'm going to get out and give this relationship a go. So I didn't want to be shooting off overseas. So I had a girlfriend at the time. It didn't last because of my activities, and I think I sort of went off on a bit of a tangent. So I was kind of juggling this life in with surveillance and close protection, which is really good. And I was getting introduced into nightlife as well. It was 95. The rave scene was kind of going mainstream into the clubs, which was really something I wasn't prepared for. I wasn't ready for that kind of culture shock. And it was a shock to the system because although I'd been introduced to it sort of moderately when I was on leave, I couldn't really engage, not as fully as I would have liked to have done. So I found myself working on the door. And back in the 90s, it wasn't as regulated as it is now. You didn't have the SIA badge. So there were a lot of villains running the doors and a lot of things going on in the security industry as well. I started being exposed to a lot of things during my time in security, and I kind of had this really trying to understand, I think that the aspect of right from wrong was very difficult to try and determine because the people that were employing me in these legitimate jobs were breaking the law. I saw that as okay, so it's doable. As a young soldier, I'm used to doing things which most civilians aren't. For example, carrying a firearm around the streets of Northern Ireland, which look exactly the same as the streets of the UK. So for all intents and purposes, I could have been anywhere with that weapon. So it felt normal to me to be armed and walk around the streets which looked like home. So you start thinking, well, if I've been doing all of that at this age, it kind of gives you this stupid notion that you're not unbreakable or not invincible, but you got this feeling that your confidence kind of sort of misleads you slightly and gives you the false sense of security that you can almost do anything and get away with anything because of this training that I've had. So I slowly started to divert my attention into into crime, not with the intention of being a criminal or involved in drugs, but more so because at the time in the 90s, we were taking ecstasy. I say we because me and a group of friends at the time, and I think it was just one lad that used to get them for us. It was only like 3 or 4 pills, and he said he didn't want to do it anymore. So I said, okay, I'll do that. I haven't really got a problem with that. So I took it on myself, and I got a little buzz out of it. I got a little spike of adrenaline, and I thought I enjoyed that. It wasn't the money, because there was no money. It was just a case of going sort of mates out a few things.
Yep.
And I think I got a proper kick out of it. I thought this was like being back on operational duty, because I kind of used the same or applied the same methods of training to do that as I did if I was on operational duties. Like you go into into a patrol state, if you like. You're vigilant, you're looking around, you're assessing things, you're looking at the windows. All the same sort of things I used to do that as I did when I was in the army and in CP work. So that kind of made me realise that I was actually going to be quite good at it. So really buying those literally 4 or 5 pills once, it just started building up and up and up. And it kind of like took off from there.
So when you came, well, let's go back. So when you were serving, how much on the ground stuff were you exposed to, and you know how much combat did you participate in?
Very limited, and if any, because I served in the 80s and the 90s and the Royal Tank Regiment. So at that time, the only real conflicts you'd be dealing with would be a campaign in Northern Ireland, or you might get a bit of UN. You know, so I did both of those. I was in Northern Ireland in 1990 until 91. And as a tank soldier, we were dismounting from our tanks and retrained as infantry to carry out the infantry role, which we did, and we did effectively. During this time, if anyone will remember, back in the back end of 1990, the Iraq War kicked off, the first one, with Saddam Hussein. So at that time, our tanks were then shipped out to Iraq, waiting for our return. So the plan was we finished Northern Ireland in January 91. It was still going off over there. We'd get back, have our leave, come back to Germany. They say, right, get you back to Lulworth at the time to retrain for the gunnery, sharpen us up on the tank systems again. And once that's done, we'll get you out to Iraq. So we were buzzing. We thought, this is great. Not only have we just done Northern Ireland, we're going out to the Gulf as well. This doesn't get any better. So we literally, the last day in Lulworth, finishing off this training, and we're getting the flight back, and we were told the report had come down through the hierarchy. Said, no, it's off, it's done. The Iraq War is over. The air campaign is done. The ground assault is finished. You're no longer needed. So we were devastated. So we had the chance to go out and do what tank soldiers could have done. Our tanks were there doing the job, and we weren't there with our tanks. So we were gutted. As a unit, we were absolutely distraught that we hadn't got the chance to go and do this.
So for civilians, because obviously when I watched you on Chris, you guys, Chris is a vet, you're a vet, that, you know, there's a very sort of experienced and knowledgeable kind of collaboration going on between you guys and a lot of the viewers on there as well. Can I just ask you to do a favour, Rich? Can you just untuck that cloak off the back there?
How about that?
Sorry, a bit of you're on the production team now at Tudor Shop.
Do what? You're going to pay me for that.
But yeah, for listeners, viewers here at Tudor Chat, you know, we have a broad range of people. We're all about bounce back experience. You know, how do we learn in life? How do we grow? How do we move through these things? So what I'd like to establish, you mentioned there, you know, you and the unit are like, yes, we're going to get the chance to go. We're going into the field, you know, a live field. Is that the general kind of, how much of it is worrying? Oh my God, are we going to get posted, and can we get away with not being posted, and can we just get in and get out? Or is it, no, we want to be in the field, we want the action? Is that?
There are some which don't join up to, certainly when I was in, some back in the 80s and before that, it was quite common that people would join the forces to travel and to get a sports career. So you had some which were focusing on a sports career, and when they're told that you've got to go out and do your job for a change, they hated it. And they couldn't understand. I don't want to do that. I want to go skiing for the summer.
Yes.
You know, which I understand that.
I've heard that, yeah.
You know, but when they were told to say, no, you've got to pick your rifle up now, you've got to go and do a proper job, they don't like it. But generally speaking, most people that I know that I served with would be literally chomping at the bit to get out and do something. Because during peacetime, and although I was a Cold War soldier, and you spend a lot of time preparing for the inevitable, you're still waiting for the off. A lot of time is spent training, practicing, doing fitness and adventure training, which is your fun time. But it's all focused around getting ready for war. And then when that chance comes up, you jump at it. You don't even think about the consequences or the fact that you could get injured or killed. You just want to get out there as quick as you can. So to not do that, for us, I mean, for me, I was devastated. You know,
Right.
oh, this is awful.
So when that happened, it was a
Yeah, it was a knock. It was a knock. But saying that was in 1991. We then got busy. So the Berlin Wall came down in 1989. Now the sort of the knockback from that was that the British Army decided to reduce the forces over in Germany, known as British Army on the Rhine. So we were at 55,000 strong just over there alone during the 80s. More than that going back earlier. So they reduced it significantly. So the aim was to start disbanding regiments, amalgamating new units together. So we went through a disbandment and an amalgamation with, I was the 3rd tanks, so the 3rd and the 2nd disbanded, got rid of half the manpower, brown lettered them, and then we amalgamated as a new 2nd Royal Tank Regiment. So that was in 1992. So we were kind of quite busy. So our mind was soon taken off the fact that we didn't get to go to Iraq. So we thought, well, let's do this amalgamation, let's get on with that. And in 1990, the back end of 92, we were told we were going to go to Cyprus on a UN tour, which was just great because it's Cyprus, it's UN, it's in the sun. It was probably one of the best 6 months of my life whilst serving because one, you're not operational, but you're peacekeeping, keeping the sort of Greek Cypriots and the Turkish Cypriots apart in Nicosia and across the island. So that was interesting in itself. But the fact that we were in Ayia Napa and Limassol for the majority of our time off is probably a career breaker for a lot.
Yeah, well, that's when Ayia Napa was kind of rising in the kind of wider consciousness of the party islands and music, sort of garage music. You know, was that happening then? Was that starting to show itself?
It was beginning to show. We had one major issue to deal with in '93. It's when, unfortunately, there was I think she was a Dutch tourist, lost her life. She was killed by some squaddies over there, and it was horrific. It was on the news, and all British forces were confined to barracks on the island. But because we weren't under the British flag with the UN, we were okay. So that really messed a few things up.
I bet, yeah.
So that kind of put a dampener on the whole tour for obvious reasons. Excuse me. So yeah, it kind of killed it off a little bit. But yeah, you could see that Cyprus was really beginning to in Napa on the square. You could see where it was going to go. It was lively, lively.
So when you do return and leave your service and you return back into a world, how long do you plan in your mind? What am I going to do? Where am I going to? You know, you're speaking to other experienced guys who've made obvious transitions into specific areas. Are you preparing for it? Are you looking forward to it? Are you scared by it?
Initially it's a mixture of excitement because when you're serving, you're bound by rules and regulations and discipline and structure and everything else. And there's so many things you do in the army which you just don't like. You got no choice. Things like guard duty. You do a day's work and you're stuck on guard for the night. So you do a day's work. You then do a 12-hour shift throughout the night. You then go back to work the next morning. So you're hanging.
Jesus. Yeah.
So you think about things like that. Then you think about, you know, weekends. The amount of time on weekends I've been sat in a trench on exercise. And I think all my mates back in Civil Street are going out enjoying themselves. And I'm sat in a hole, cold and I'm wet. So you're kind of thinking on the negative aspects of your service. You've got to get out for a reason. So yeah, you do kind of look to what you're going to. You don't really think too much about what you're going into. You think about what you're leaving behind. You're trying to leave the negative aspects of that service, or certainly for me, I did anyway.
Yeah.
So back then, you didn't have the career and transition partnership, which is part of what helps veterans or would-be veterans to adjust to Civil Street. It deals with things like, I think, a lot of CVs and interview techniques and transferable skills, and they do a good job of that. But we didn't have any of that. We were basically said, look, there's a big catalogue, and it literally was paper. You have a look in there at what course do you want to do. So you've done so many years. This is what you're qualified to budget-wise. Your budget is $3,000. There's the courses you can do. So that's it. That was my resettlement.
Right.
And they actually gave us it in cash, which is unreal. Because most squaddies I know don't even make their course.
No, I can imagine. Yeah.
It's spent before they get there.
Yeah.
So luckily we did a course in Maidstone with ex-SBS, and we did a close protection course with a load of ex-soldiers or just due to come out of the forces. It was a really good course.
Okay.
But that's the only prep we had. There was nothing else. There's nothing about managing your money or dealing with the fact that you're going to be in a different environment. None of that was in place.
And what about any psychological element?
Nothing. You're traumatized on a daily basis in a naffy bar back then. The things you see and experience in that place alone is enough to traumatize you.
I've worked with a couple of lads. Yeah, I worked with a couple of paras, and they told me some stories. Jeez, you'd be fucking crazy.
The things that go on behind closed doors in barracks, I don't think is as bad now, because with social media and camera phones and everything else, a lot of people getting in trouble. But back then, there was no evidence of anything. I've seen some horrific things going on. I can't even say on a podcast. I can't even say on an X-rated podcast what I've seen.
Just pull your mic in a little bit, Rich, just a little bit closer.
No worries.
I mean, a couple of friends of mine, one of which was a para, was telling me stuff that was like, and at the time I was a party boy. Yeah. And, often when you'd get back to parties after the party, some crazy stuff would happen in them places. And he was telling me things that were like, wow, that's a different set of...
And sometimes that's when you're sober as well.
Yeah. Yeah, God,
So some of the things you're exposed to, and this is the difficult thing about a transition, is you get exposed to so many crazy things, you just accept that as normality. So when you come out and you start kind of doing these things, people think you're fucking nuts, they think you're tapped, they think there's something wrong with you. So you can then have to suffer things like potential rejection, or you have to isolate yourself, and that's the problems that a lot of veterans do face, is the fact that they don't feel we belong. Someone said to me once, we're kind of like a hexagonal peg. We don't quite fit into a round hole or a square hole, but we're kind of getting there if we're really pushed hard. And that's how veterans can be. You don't quite fit anywhere.
Isn't it strange as well how so much of that kind of what would seem insane behaviour or insane kind of camaraderie is also a thing that really binds in many ways and takes you to places that, because of the very nature of them being not normal, is what makes you uniquely bonded.
Yeah, it's that dark sense of humour. You have to be able to laugh in some of these craziest times. I've been in places where it could be really bad, both in the army and in what I've been doing since. And you just sit there laughing about things, because if you don't, you just crack up and go mad. So definitely a dark humour and that bonding with like-minded people is what it makes you great at being in the forces, but it makes you really crap at being a civilian. Yeah.
I spoke about this on a podcast I guested on recently, and even the transition from those party nights for people like me in Civvy Street, going from the insanity of 2-3 day sessions and all of the things that go with it, into like just going out with a set of people who go out, have some beers, have a kebab and go home. Even that was a strange thing. So at what point do you find yourself moving towards dance music and that whole culture of ecstasy and unity and euphoria? How does that come about?
So basically, when I used to do the door, I used to take a bit of amphetamine, just because it gave me a little bit of confidence and I could talk. It's like you just
sharpen the edges.
Yeah, it didn't help with the paranoia though, which was the flip side. When you're on the door, paranoia is not good. And I would walk. I'd finish my door on the 11 o'clock. The bar would shut, because this is old hours back in the mid-90s. I'd then take a wander down to the club, which is my favourite club. It's called Odyssey. It was in Bristol, and it was, funny enough, opposite the main police station, which is ironic. And I'd walk into the club, and my friends would be in there, and they're all off their tits, and I'm thinking, they're having a good time. And I said to my mate, I said, what's going on? He said, we had pills. I went, oh, really? He said, yeah. He said, do you want one? I went, yeah, all right, why not? So he disappeared off, and he came back about 10 minutes later on. He said, so we got $30. I'd never heard of him before. I said, well, that sounds all right. So I just necked it without thinking. About half hour later on, because I'd not drunk anything, so I just started drinking.
The best way.
Yeah.
We learn.
Yeah, definitely. And within half an hour, everything started getting louder, and the bass was booming, and I could hear people's voices across the other side of the club, and I thought, what the hell is going on here? And all I saw was people smiling then and laughing, and I thought, and then my mate said, come on, we're going to have a dance, and I thought, yeah, I'm ready, I want to dance. So we went downstairs, because we were on this second floor, And they got podiums dotted around. I didn't get on the podium, but we got down and there's two guys on this podium, shirts off, bald heads, units, and they're just dancing. I thought, God, just an odd sight. I'm not used to that. And I was just so wasted. I just took in the moment. And then my mate said, "Oh, I'll introduce you to these two guys up on the podium." I thought, well, why? So, well, these are the guys that you got your appeal from.
Oh.
And I thought, all right. And they jumped down. It was, this is mate Richie just got out of the army. It was a massive sweaty hug, you know what it's like, and it was all very tactile. And I thought to myself, God, look at you guys. You're just there in the middle of it, aren't you? You're having such a good time and surrounded by women and people, and you're the centre of that world. And something just suddenly clicked. And something I noticed when I used to come on leave with friends, we'd go out clubbing and partying. Not drugs, but drinking. And I was always like this little satellite on the outside. Although I was always welcomed into the group, I never felt like I quite belonged because they were current with everything. You know, they knew they knew who.
Dipping in and out from a whole different world.
Yeah, so I'm always playing catch up. So I found myself trying to kind of like, although I was within the group, I felt like I was outside the group. Never felt like I really belonged. And I saw something in these two guys, and they were dancing, they were having such a good time. And it isn't about being the centre of attention, it's about belonging to something. And I thought, I want that. I want to be not on the podium with a shirt off, but I want to be in the middle of this world. And it kind of planted a seed in the back of my mind, because at this stage I was only really still doing mainly security. I wasn't really involved in the selling of drugs. Still doing security. So this was in for the summer of 95. And I just thought to myself, I really want to be in there. So I was just thinking when my friends said about getting these pills for them, I found that as I was bringing the pills into the club for my friends, people would then see that we're clearly having a good time, rough our tits. They come and say, "Oh, where'd you get your pills from?" I say, I sorted them out. "Oh, have you got any left?" I thought, "No, I haven't, mate. I just had literally what we've taken." I said, "But maybe next week." It said it on impulse. So that was it. I was off, and I went and saw the guy that I was getting these 5 pills from. I said, "Look, mate, I'm getting some orders in the club." He said, "Well, do you want to take a few more?" I said, "Yeah, I got no money." He said, "Well, no, you tick them." "All right, that's handy." Dead handy. So I took like about 15. It was all about 15 pills, maybe less than that. It might have just been 10. And I sorted my mates out. So I had about 5 left. And they were sold within a few minutes within getting in the club. Because people saw that, they recognised me from like, "Oh, you got it?" "Yep, there you go, job done." I thought, wow, that was easy. And I was really sort of like being very sort of counter surveillance savvy. I was looking around, and I was using my military side of things, which was great because it felt natural.
Yeah, it's kicking in for you. It's just
it
kicking
was just
in.
a natural progression, and then I was enjoying it because I was suddenly building this lifestyle around me, like a comfort blanket, I guess, and it gave me that sense of belonging. So over a period of 6 months of building this, it grew and it grew and it grew, and we literally converted that club from being a mainstream normal club to somewhere that every Friday and Saturday night it was a banging dance club. The DJ would make sure he put on at least a good 2-3 hour set of dance music because they knew there was less trouble, less hassle, and it really changed. And the fact where it was known where we were, and it's called Pillhead's Corner. Can't think why it was known as that. So and you'd have this one little section of the club which is completely raving, people dancing all night, water all over the place, and it was peaceful. And I sort of felt comfortable that I'd built this thing around me. And I had a friend I served with, by then he'd got out of the army. He was living next door to me, and he was my partner in crime, if you like. And he was involved, and we had this really great little thing going on, and it was like being back in the forces without the rules. But we made our own rules.
And you're enjoying the music as well. You're enjoying the euphoria, those smiling faces being lost in the rhythm and the beats, and at 3 o'clock in the morning. And that there's something for people who know what we're talking about. It is a magical thing.
Yeah.
And it's such a, as you allude to there, Rich, Pillhead Corner, we joke, but like people know there's no drama. There's no, like, people are literally, and it's proven now with MDMA studies all over the world, they're using it for counselling, PTSD and all sorts, the key ingredient of a good ecstasy pill, which is unlocks this truth serum or this kind of, whatever the positive, I don't know, you unlock it in you, and you feel it unlocked from everybody around you. And there's a cliche, and we all fall into the bracket of, where you're from, what you're on, and you have this amazing sort of binding experience in the gents for 20 minutes.
Which one have you had? I've had, they're great.
Yeah. But there is something in that, clearly, because we've gone on now, medicinally, we're doing all, I think we're MAPS, Rick Doblin at MAPS over in the States there have taken MDMA therapy right through into, I think they're getting into phase 3 trials now and bringing it into, so there's clearly something in it. Obviously, when we're talking about the mid-90s, as you said, the rave scene is transferring from the fields into the clubs. DJs, like everything, it becomes sort of commercialized to a degree, but in come the drugs as well, and that culture changes, bottles flying about and grumpy fellas at the bar elbowing other people, that starts to change into, like you say, big old units with their shirts off but smiling faces. And so you're in a good place at this point then, you're enjoying this, you're doing a little bit with your mates, you've got your own little vibe in your own little club, but at some point things change again, don't they? They generally do. I've been there myself, generally another stage happens. So where do we go from there?
So the weird thing was, after we did this club scene, I say we because me and my mate were doing it for about 3 years until 98. And I met then who was my wife. We recently divorced, but that's fine. So I met my wife at the time, and that was okay. And then she fell pregnant with our first, and for me, changed because she was pregnant. She wasn't going out clubbing. She was never into the drug scene. She was just going out to enjoy the drink. And for me, if she wasn't going out, I'm stopping in with her. That's how it's going to be. I'm not going to be leaving a pregnant girlfriend.
I would like to jump in here then, because on my assessment of you, watching you with Chris, and the version of many different stories that we arrive at today, I looked at you and I thought, because I've met those guys, I grew up, I'm a little bit younger than you, but those guys who would have been on the doors when I started going clubbing, 96, 97, 98, in that world where they were the villains and they were the well-known guys, you struck me as like that hexagonal peg, because you clearly are somebody who's, for me anyway, this is my perception, as an honour and what's the right word? There's a sense of niceness about you,
I know.
right? It seems genuine to me, but obviously you're capable as well, and those two things are generally a very good mix. And I just, it came across to me, and as you allude to there, that's probably, when we think about drug dealers, again, people who not necessarily understood about, we think drugs are bad and that is it. Your wife falls pregnant, you've built a little thing that happens in a club, you're making probably enough money to put yourself through good times every weekend, but your wife falls pregnant and you want to stay with her, you want to slow it down and you want to be with her and honour that. You don't get that from many people in that situation.
No, it was a funny one, because at the time I was kind of just doing some freelance security as well as doing what I was doing, but it was minimal. It was very minimal. So I was really kind of dependent on what money I could make on the pills, and it wasn't a huge amount. It was just enough to get by. It wasn't a lavish lifestyle by a long shot. So when she fell pregnant, the minute she fell pregnant, I just dropped out the clubs and I went and got a job straight away. Within about 2 weeks I was working. The worst thing about that was I was working as a delivery driver for a company called Initial Textiles, just delivering laundry, and I was quite happy. I was still selling pills, but and what I discovered, the problem was, is I discovered Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, whereas before they didn't exist because I was too busy coming down. So I found I had clarity for 7 days a week, and that kind of opened my eyes a little bit about, right, okay, so I've got a child on the way now. I've not married at this stage, but we're going to get married at some point. And I was just looking around thinking, I'm working, I've got a market, and I was able to sort of, I suppose, structure the pill sales into more of a business, and it wasn't a huge amount. So what I found was, because I wasn't going into the clubs, I was having to sell them before I went into the clubs. It's a case of doing the meetings on the daytimes during the Thursday and the Friday. If I was in my delivery van, which was dead handy, I'd have the disguise of a delivery van. It's before GPS tracking.
Yep.
So I've been with my little towel van full of towels and uniforms and tablecloths and ecstasy and cannabis and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I literally would use that van to go around and collect what needed to be collected. I even had the chance of, like, if it was tea towels, have something to disguise things with it.
Yeah, of course.
It was perfect. And I found that meeting new people even just within that workplace, a couple of introductions came through for something slightly different, and it kind of opened up doors. And I found, because of the ability to sort of communicate with people, they're happy to trade with me.
Mm.
So that clarity and discovering those 3 days a week just changed it. So I suppose coming out of the clubs in one sense was really good, but on the other sense it was really bad, because it then threw me slightly deeper into it. And I just continued as I was for about another 2 years, 2-3 years. Our son was born in 99. And it was up and down. It was really difficult, because I think we were just on the breadline, and I wasn't earning enough money in the drugs game to cover for any problems or any issues that came about. And as people know, that you do get problems in that. You do get people might, get arrested, you end up landing with a debt. So I wasn't making the dosh. So I kind of had to have a think about the income that's coming in. And a friend of mine at the time who was my supplier of pills, he'd been selling coke for about a year, maybe slightly longer than that. And I said to him, I said, look, I want to get into the coke scene now. He said, what do you want to do? I said, well, let's not mess around buying it. Let's get it proper, and let's just mix it ourselves and make some money on it. And he said, I've never really thought of that. I said, well, I think it's the only way we can do it, mate. I said, because I'm going to want to earn some money. I've got a wedding to pay for in about a year or so's time. I need to start bringing some money in. So we did. We started getting some what was considered as pure 90%. I'd never seen it before. And we got between us, we got a kilo at a time. He was shifting a lot more than I was. And looked at his stuff, and I thought, crikey, that's just unreal. I'd never seen it before. I'd only ever seen it in little bags. I was having a little sniff every now and again, but I really wasn't doing a huge amount. I had a lot of friends who were doing it, and it was kind of that culture which moved from people taking pills from the back end of the 90s. They're moving into coke.
Yes.
And it kind of like transitioned, and it made logical sense. I'm going to keep this business going, that I need to think about that. So but I never got involved in selling grams or ounces. I just jumped straight into nines and doing quarter keys. So 2002, that's when I really started doing the coke.
Right.
And that's when it all changes.
Did you, 2 questions really. Did you feel the level change? Because as a participator myself, as a young clubber and a raver, you make that transition just on the dance floor from burning yourself out for 4 years on ease to then like Pillhead corner becomes coke corner, where you're just chilling and talking a bit more and kind of chasing your lines and all the rest of it. Yeah. But were you aware, because for people listening and watching, I'm sure, they're seeing your business, your pragmatic mind coming through, You're not out there all flash and, look at me. You're sort of pragmatic about it. You've been enjoying the actual culture of it, but now it is moving into an area. When you jump to coke, does it feel like you're getting into a heavier game? Do the consequences? Are you more aware? Like, right, we're moving into a different world here, and then it starts to actually show you that as well. Yeah,
because the numbers change. I mean, just quickly there, people go from dancing to tapping their feet, don't they?
Yes.
And that's that transition from waving their hands to just standing and just tapping their foot with a pint like that, just looking around. So the ball game changed completely. Yeah. Not overnight, because I was only really doing a small amount initially. And I think what I noticed was the struggle to find someone reliable that wasn't out to rob you or trying to get to demand money out of you. There's a lot of really bad people in that game. And it's trying to find the right ones to work with. And I call work with because it was a job for me, and to some people it wasn't a job, it was a way to make money, and they made money however they could. And that ruthless attitude, which is rife within that industry, isn't one that I had. That's not something I was in. I wasn't buying into that attitude. I wasn't willing to work with people who had that attitude, although I did, and at times didn't have much choice because that's just the way that it goes. Yeah. It took a long time to find someone that had the right frame of mind, which we can go into that later on. It changed, and the problems came with it. So severe problems with with coke, and probably that's where the kind of book starts to come into its own, is when you're dealing with people who are unpredictable. They've got out of control spending habits. They're spending their money before they've pulled in the money to pay for their bills. So you're put in situations where you have to sort of deal with things and manage people, and it becomes really difficult, really, really, really stressful.
When's the first time, Rich, that you find yourself, I don't know, you get the phone call on a Wednesday night, something's gone wrong, or someone's coming on top, it might be someone looking at a tax or whatever it is. When's the first time you're like, shit, we've got to do something now, or we've got to act? Can you remember?
Well, there's a number of times which you get, which I think they're all potentially going to go wrong.
Yes.
Every single deal could go wrong. There's a pretty high probability that it's going to go wrong at some point. But I think the worst one you get is I did a lot of middleman work, where somebody from out of town would want half a kilo of coke and they're paying cash, but they would only accept a certain percentage. So I'd be responsible for making sure that it is what it is by testing it, by getting a washed up return, and I won't go into how that's done, but people will know how that's done. It's the only surefire way to really know that what you're getting is correct.
Yeah.
So I went into one, it's a really ropey flat, and it was one of those meetings where you, like the ones you see on the TV, it was just like, you just don't want to be in there. I knew the guy, we'd had some experience with him. He wasn't to be messed with, he's a hard guy, he's a boxer, he can handle himself, and I'm thinking this is going to be a headache if this doesn't work out. So I went in and looked at it. It looked okay. Tested it, came back fine. 7 out of 10, which is what the guy down there said, that's the minimum he'll accept. I said, yeah, that's cool, I'll take it, mate. So good. So I give him the dosh. Let's say 7 grand for argument's sake, maybe 7.5. And I delivered it down to this chap down the road from me, and I got a call back within a couple of days, or no, later that day, saying it's nowhere near 7 out of 10, it's a 3 out of 10. I thought, shit, I've got to take this back now. So I went down to this little village, grabbed it back, looked, it was the same as it was. Basically, you had to go into it to check it. Took it back up to this flat, and I walked in. He knew I was coming back, and I said, look, mate, I've got to bring it back. He said, yeah, that's not a problem. I thought, this is going to be easy. Put it in front of me, and he said, that's not what I gave you. I said, it is. He said, no, it wasn't like that when I gave it away. It was a solid lump. Now it's all broken up. How do I know that's what I gave you?
Oh, no.
So in truth, you don't. So it was kind of like, now we were stood in his hallway at this time, and he stood by the door. I'm stood with the kitchen to my back, with the coke in the kitchen, and on my right there's a lounge with 3 or 4 lads sat in there. I thought, if this doesn't go the way that it should do, I'm probably going to be in a lot of trouble now. I can see me not getting out of this flat in one piece. So I'm looking on the wall to my left, there's a lump hammer hanging on the wall. I'm thinking, I'm looking at it. He looks at me looking at this lump hammer. We both looked at each other and we said, look, should we talk about this? Let's deal with it properly. Mm-hmm. If we start getting funny, nothing's going to get dealt with. So let's deal with this properly and let's have a look at what we've got. So he said, yeah, okay, no worries. So we looked at him, put it on the scales, and I said, look, I'll make a compromise with you so I can work with some of this. I said, I'll give you back everything that's a solid lump that you're happy with, which was about 3/4 of it. So you refund me for that. I'll take on credit what's left. I'll sell that, give you the money back. He said, yeah, okay, that's fine, no worries, mate. So I compromised. I negotiated a deal with him. It wasn't ideal. It took about, I think it's probably about a couple of ounces of stuff that was loose, but it was still sellable to get the money back. Took the guy's money back down the road. I sold this off, made a small profit on it, paid his dosh within a couple of days. Everyone was happy. Never went back there again because it was daft, because it had the potential to be quite volatile. And he was ready. You could see he was kind of like thinking about the lump hammer. Yeah. But that was just one of a multitude of things which could have gone wrong. But there was an incident which is in the book, which I've had to change a few things for obvious reasons, where the difference about the book is I didn't put in there that I was about to be stabbed. Right, okay. When the, and I won't give too much, when the guys had finished giving me a hard time, one of them was approaching me with a knife, and I was already trapped underneath some machinery, and I couldn't really move. And I just remember looking out to my right, I was down on the deck and the blood was flying out my face, looking across, and I saw this guy walking in with a knife. And I thought, this is going to really hurt. There's not much I can fend off. I can probably take a few cuts to the forearm, but after that, I'm going to be, it depends where he's going for. I thought he's going to stick it in my leg or something. And he got to within about a foot. And the guy that brought him down there as assistants just said, no, don't do it. And he put the knife down and walked out. So that was close.
Fucking hell. And how much, Rich, in those situations, coming back to what I'd said before about my feeling of you, that I'm feeling this is a pretty genuine, I mean, probably, you know, as you say, the peg don't fit for a lot of people, but how much are you having to blow up into those situations and kind of front things a little bit and maybe accentuate some of your meanness?
Flex yourself a bit.
Yeah. How much of that are you doing, and how, you know, because that can backfire sometimes, can't it?
Yeah.
If people stray too far.
Rarely, if ever.
Right. So you just use your kind of good, genuine gesture and will, but you're calculated, you know, you're in environments where things go.
Yeah, you can generally read people. If someone is aggressive or violent and that's how they are, then I'm dealing with the wrong people. So I try to avoid them as much as I can. Doesn't mean you don't have to experience them during your journey through that world. I find that rarely did I have to actually, in fact, never did I really get any major issues. It was probably seen as being a little bit too soft, but I would rather learn a lesson from someone and take a small financial hit than having to go in on them and do things differently and then take a hit in a different way.
And getting all the back and forth and the mess. And
because you do that, generally speaking, people would they'll start looking at going to the police, and then you bring the world down around you. My wife had no idea what was going on, so that was a risk I couldn't afford to take.
That's interesting. So with the coke, she was not privy?
None of it.
Right.
None of it. She didn't know anything.
Right.
You know, so the problem there was if I start creating enemies unnecessarily, and having a family is a weakness in that world.
Of course, yeah.
So I start creating enemies, then next thing I know, I've got to deal with that. And if the police are coming round, or if they're coming round, then I've got to then explain to my wife, and we've got a young child, exactly who these people are. So I had to weigh up the risks of what do I want to lose most? Am I willing to lose a couple of quid or lose my wife and son? So I keep my wife and son all day long. Of course.
And as you're moving, Rich, through these levels, since leaving the services, are you aware at the time that, you know, you're the lost soldier? Are you aware you are lost? Are you you know, we've talked about the ecstasy and finding that euphoria and that kind of group and that culture. But as you're going through these layers, are you aware of any sort of PTSD after effects, any kind of, or is it much further down the line, or are you kind of having moments?
I think in reflection now, looking back, you kind of realise you're on your own when things go wrong. I was always quite willing to be there to support someone, and when things went wrong for me, no one was there.
Okay.
Rarely was there anyone there to stand by me, and I couldn't involve my veteran friends in my activities. It just wasn't right, and so that's when I found out I really was on my own. And like I came up with the lost soldier because I think I was lost in the sense of where did I belong? Didn't know where I was supposed to be, and I think that came to light once I'd been put in prison, and I looked back on my life and thought I didn't have a clue where I was going. I was just blindly following this scent of what I thought was Civvy Street, and at the time it all made sense. It seemed to fit, and I sort of subconsciously took all these different elements of my new life, fitted them into this big void that was what used to be the forces, and they seemed to fit really well at the time because of my lifestyle. But I think as my lifestyle changed and I became a family man, it no longer fitted, so I really didn't know where I belonged. And I think I just became I felt like I'd been abandoned, and it wasn't the fault of the forces. It's just a lot of things that veterans do when you come out. You tend to you just think you're going to be all right. You just kind of hope that there's going to be someone there who's going to pick up and keep you going. But it rarely happens. You've got to ask for the help. So yeah, in reflection, when I look back now, I think I was totally out of my depth.
And so much so that we arrive at the often inevitable conclusion of this life, which is jail.
Yeah. What a journey. So the interesting thing about the whole getting ready to go to prison was you kind of all through your career involved in crime, you'd be daft to think that you're not going to get caught. You have to have that in the back of your mind, that if I keep going, I'm going to get caught. So you're always I was always formulating some kind of exit strategy. I thought, I have to have a way out of this. I have to do it, because I've now got 2 boys. The second son was born in 2005. I need to get a way out of this. I need to find some kind of vice which I can do, which again ticks all the right boxes for me. So I linked with the book, I went through a lot of issues financially, dealt with a lot of problems, and that kind of slingshot me into a whole different world, which is going to be involved in the next book. And as a backlash from that, I was introduced to some really interesting people, which helped me to, I think, to sort of raise my profile a lot in the drugs world. I started selling a lot more. So by then, back in, I think, 2008, mid-2007, I'd finished doing some stuff abroad. And my business was then beginning to pick up to the point where all the people that I was buying from were then buying from me.
Wow.
So I managed to sort of turn it around to where it probably would have been had I not had these problems associated in the book from Charlie 4 Kilo. So I kind of recovered financially. I paid off all these debts, and I'd worked that hard to pay them off. What I should have done at that stage when I broke even would have been to walk away. That's when you walk away. But you think, well, I'm making some money now. Why on earth would I walk away? I've had a year and a half of absolute hell. I'm going to live a little bit. So you live a little bit. You treat your family to some holidays, and because they've lived that hell with you, although they don't know why they're living that hell, I could just put it down to it being a recession. Put it down to that. Well, recession is bad, work's bad.
And what were you like, just to interject quickly, what were you like as a husband? How present do you think you were as a husband and a father?
Physically, I was there. Mentally, rarely. There are moments where, even when you're trying to engage with your family, a dad or a husband, it's all tainted by the fact of the stress and the worries and the concerns of what's going on. So even if you go on holiday, you can't relax because you're waiting for that phone, that message to come up. I would leave my work phone, my burner phone, in the hotel room, switched off. I come back and I spend all day, if I was on a beach or wherever it would be, thinking, oh God, I've got to switch your phone on later on. And you're thinking, oh. And even when things are going well, you're thinking, oh, what's going to be the problem? You're just expecting it to go wrong. And I go back and whack the phone on, and you wait for the beeps and the text messages and everything else, and they don't come. You think that euphoria sets in, and that sense of relief, because that buzz that I got years ago, that's gone. That buzz is way, way gone. So you get more of a sense of relief that nothing's gone wrong, not a buzz that you've just enjoyed that ride. And then that turns to the stress of doing the job itself. So you kind of move from that buzz to relief to stress. So everything was tainted. So I was never a bad dad, but I was never there mentally enough to enjoy being a dad. Right. If that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of to engage in that, in presence, to really be present. You're kind of present but absent in a way. I've heard psychologists write it in that way.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because the juxtaposition that I see with you is kind of this sort of underpinning of morality, actually, ironically. But you've ended up steering into this world, which is a difficult world to kind of comprehend anyway, because the war on drugs is a whole can of worms that is such a bizarre thing. We touched on it a little bit earlier with the ecstasy culture. Yeah. There's a reason that these festivals that happen, or used to happen, in fields that are marshalled by police, and there's 35,000 kids just dancing and raving to music, and the police are wandering around chatting to people, and it's all, it's not the high street and alcohol. It's a weird thing that we're at a strange time with the war on drugs, but you're trying to provide for a family, you're trying to build a future, you're trying to find belonging, you're trying to build all the right things that we do. You've just taken these tracks, and these tracks have led you into inevitable conclusions, which is, the gang gets bigger, it gets deeper. Yeah. Paranoia, and as you mentioned, all the things that can go wrong, they're just scratching at you from every angle. You know, what is it that does go wrong, and how does it play out, Rich?
Yeah, so as I increased, so I went from literally being a man on the ground doing everything to recovering this debt, working on my own. And there was a point where I was actually building my own client base again. So I rang up a really good friend who he's ex-forces himself, and he said, yeah, I'm looking for work, so do you want to be a runner with me? He said, yeah, I'd love to. You know, so I sort of subcontracted work to him, which he was happy doing, and I was doing my thing, and then that built a little bit more, so I needed to take someone else on, and then a few introductions, because a couple of things had gone wrong for a couple of guys, one of them being Cliff in the book. We believe it was on top for him with the police, so people were kind of like distancing themselves from him, and they came to me to look for work, and thought, yeah, okay, if he's on top, then I ain't got a problem with that. If he's not trading, then let's go for it. So I kind of adopted these guys as well. I ended up with a fairly decent sized network of, I think, about 7 people working for me, to the point where it was really generating some decent cash, and it kind of tipped the scale in favour. I think, right, I'm going to really enjoy it for a little while. So I got into motorsport. I kind of like found a way I created my company, Launch Motorsport, where I was doing track days on airfields. And it was really popular back in the sort of 07, 08, 09. The old Japanese car market was really taken off. The modified car scene was massive. And I really enjoyed it. And I suddenly found something which ticked all those boxes again. It was this whole motorsport scene, the car scene. I was always been passionate about cars and driving anyway. And I got into my Jap cars and tuning the cars, and with the money that was coming in, it was easy to get your cars up to a decent spec. So with all these people working around me and building the business, I saw my exit. I thought, right, this is it. I'll open up my own garage in motorsport preparation for cars like I've been driving. I was racing at semi-professional levels, doing things like time attack and saloon racing. I was working with guys in the British Drift Championship. I ran a team in there as well. So it really was taken off. That was during 2010. And I thought 2010 started as my best year and ended as my worst year. So I opened the garage in 1st of October 2010 was the opening date. And the 28th of October or 29th, one of those 2 dates, my friend from the forces, the guy that had served, he got taken down. He got hit by the police, and I wasn't quite sure why, because the guys I was working with, they just don't get pulled. You know, they don't do silly things. They're all legal. They don't have any
seatbelts, indicators, blenders.
Not drinking a can of beer and smoking a joint out the window. It's just not the way that they do it.
Which happens
it does.
More often than
sniffing lines off the dash on the way down. What are you doing? You know, so these were sensible guys, and so most of them didn't actually take drugs. They weren't interested. It was just
that is the fucking that underpins anything rational that can. You know, is this? Are we minimising risk here? Yes, he don't do the deer. He does not touch the tackle. No,
well, my mate from the forces, the one that got pulled, I did have these kind of questions about how did it come about, and I'll backtrack slightly. We gave him a nickname of Paris. He's a big black guy. You know, he's a bit of a unit. You know, and I sent him a job down the road down the M4 to pick up some MDMA. It wasn't much. It was about 3 or 4 inches, I think. It's one of those ones where just if it comes up, you get it. You know, because I had a market for it. Although a bit quite small, it was there. So I went down to get this, and he rang me up. He said, I'm nearly back. He said, can I have a little try? I've never tried it. I said, well, yeah, of course you can, mate, but just wait to get back, because it's pretty good stuff. yeah, no worries. So I said, where are you now? So I'm by Bath. I said, all right. I said, yeah, wait. He said, well, I've just taken it.
Oh, dear. Hold tight.
I said, well, just drive quickly then, mate. You got about half an hour. Bath to Bristol, 25 minutes. So he gets back, and I got a phone call. I was like, oh, mate, this is amazing. I said, have you done the drop? I said, huh? I said, have you done the drop? He went, oh, what do you mean? And I could hear music in the background, and French music, because he likes to go to Paris a lot, and French music. And I thought, so where are you? So I'm parked at a lay-by by Anne Summers, which, if anyone knows Bristol, it's off a place called Bond Street. It's a little lay-by in the central Bristol. So just stay there. I'll ring the guy up again if I get him to come to you. And, all right, no worries. So I rang the guy up, and he said, yeah, that's fine, I go and get it. And he rang back after about 20 minutes. He said, I can't get him to answer the door. He's sat in his car, music on full blast, just slumped against the window, just in a world of ecstasy, just having a great time. But it's French music, it's not even dance music. And he eventually got into answer the door, and he gave him this package, and the guy around me said, "Don't you ever send someone like that down to get my stuff again." I said, "Apologies, mate." So he inherited the name Paris because of that, which is quite a good name. So he's had this little incident. I'm thinking, how volatile is he? Because he does suffer from some anger issues. But he was a good runner. When he went into military road, he was really good. So he'd had a couple of road rages, nothing major. He chased someone with a shovel down the road once, which was bad enough. And I think that put a marker on his car. I was with him once, and we were just where you get two lanes merge into one after a set of lights. Now, the right filter was to turn right, and me and my friend were in the left-hand lane, the correct lane. I had a bag of money with me, about 30-odd grand. And this guy pulled up to the right, and I thought to myself, please don't try and overtake us. Just please, hopefully you're turning right. And this guy, an older chap, didn't know he was in the wrong lane. He went past my friend or past us. And my mate just totally flipped. He literally, he went round him, skidded in front of him, blocked the whole road traffic. And I
dear.
thought, fucking hell, mate, please don't. And he got out the car, inflated him. So he's big enough as it is.
Yeah.
And he's bellowing through the window. What the fuck? You know, I'm thinking, get back in the car. Mate, get back. And I'm trying not to shout out or display the fact I've got 30 grand in the car with me. And then she turns around and just, like a big bear, he just sort of skulks back into the car again. He goes, like that. I said, mate, don't be doing that, please. So we moved on, and that was it. So in the back of my mind, I got these little
triggers,
splinters thinking, has he been pulled because of something he's done? So when he was pulled over with armed police, I'm thinking, yeah, clearly it's a marker. But I thought, let's shut down anyway. Let's shut down because we're not sure. We can't be. At the end of the day, they found a load of coke on him. It was about 1.25 kilos of coke on him. So we can't be sure that it's not on. If it wasn't, it certainly is now. So we did what we did was we shut the phones down, which in reflection was the worst thing you could do anyway during those things.
Right.
They generally say that once, because it shows that you're severing ties when the prosecution, if they've got your numbers. And so funny enough, these numbers went off after this arrest.
That's interesting.
They show a sequence.
So that's not the thing to do.
No, what my brief said to me was, said you're better off leaving the phone running and just put it somewhere like in a waterproof bag under a bush or something. Just let it die after a few days. Just let it go. He said, don't disassociate yourself because that shows guilt.
Right.
It means if you attribute towards that phone, you have to explain why did you switch it off then after this man was arrested. So that was kind of our undoing. So we sort of shut down, and at this time I had this network of people working with me, and one of the guys used to manage it for me, I won't say his name, he's got pulled on the Encro chat thing last year, which I'm quite happy about, which I'll go into that shortly. He said, look, why didn't you keep going? I said, no, mate, it's on top. He said, well, look, give it some thought. I've got another runner for you. I said, well, all mine I've binned it off. I said, look, guys, go to ground. We don't know what's going on. So look, I've got a mate can do it for you. So I'm just not interested, mate. And he kept badgering me. And there's a couple of guys looking for some bits and bobs, and I thought, well, I don't want to go into it heavily. I said, well, I'll do one thing. I said, right, get him down. I've got a job. I need to pick some stuff up from down the road. So he said, all right, okay. And this was down south of Bath. I'll put it that way. So this guy, his friend, does the job. He takes a trip down to this little village or little town. Drives back up. He's about to get onto the M4 by Bath, and he gets arrested. Police pulled him over. Uniformed police with lights, nicked him. And we found out about a day later. Well, we found out pretty soon because he didn't turn up with what we needed. And he was nicked. I thought, Christ, that's not good. That's the second job I've done, the second arrest. I thought it was definitely on top. Has to be. So I'm thinking, well, I've opened the garage now. This was at the end of November. We've got a recession. We've got a really cold winter coming as well that time. The winter of 2010 was ridiculous. So I can't even afford to run the garage now because the money, I opened the garage with the intention of putting a couple of grand minimum a month into it just to pay the bills, just to keep it afloat whilst I make this transition out of the drugs game. So this second arrest has gone off and a few weeks go by and I think, oh, this is bad. But there's no sign of anything happening. I'm not doing anything. And then come New Year's Eve or the day before New Year's Eve, one of these guys, who was just a good mate, I've been doing bits with him for years, He said, "Oh, can you get me an ounce for like New Year's Eve?" And I said, "Mate, I'm down, I'm shut down." He said, "But anything you can do." I said, "I'll chuck you at one of my mates. He's in the clear as far as I know. So I'll give you his number and I'll let him know, and you can do it between yourselves. Just leave me out of it, mate. I'm done." So I rang this guy up with one of my co-defenders. "Look, got somebody who wants to see you. If you can sort it out, it'd be great." He said, yeah, no worries. So they had each other's numbers. New Year's Eve, I'm sat there in my garage. No customers, it's dead. And their meeting's due, I think, something like 1 o'clock. Now, on that day, the day before, there'd been a murder in the local area in Clifton. I think it was a foreign national had been murdered by someone. There's a lot of police activity in the area. And they done a phone call from my friend, said, "Oh, where's your mate?" So I don't know, just give him a call. So the other guy said, "Oh, is he due to turn up yet?" I said, "Why are you ringing me? You've got each other's numbers, always not answering. Well, just please keep trying." So all of a sudden, I've got calls from both parties on my phone. So it goes quiet. Everything happens. My mate that sold him the stuff rang up. He said, "It was a bit weird." He said, "I was down there and this guy was staring at me." I said, "In what way?" He said, "I just seen weird." He's across the other side. He kept looking at me. So, "All right, mate, well, it should be okay." So I got a call that night, New Year's Eve, about 10 o'clock at night, from the guy that had bought the stuff. So I just got out of the police station, mate. So I was arrested when I pulled away. So they jumped on him. So if there's nothing more guaranteed,
Yeah.
I thought to myself, great, they both rang me. Both called me at the same time. So that puts me into that conspiracy. In front of the prosecution said, that's the bit that put the nail in the coffin.
Just the phones, there you go.
That's the bit that got me. So that for me was convinced, right, it's definitely shut down. So last time I sold coke was or had anything to do with it, was New Year's Eve 2010. So just waiting for the arrest now. I just sat there thinking, well, it's going to come. It's going to happen.
How do you get your head around that, Rich?
I think...
Are you not using at this point? Are you pretty compass mentalist?
No, I'm away from it completely because I'm just totally off it. Because of my motorsport, I was focusing on my career as a driver.
Right.
So I just didn't... I drank. I drank a lot in the evenings, not to the point of alcohol, but I drank a few beers just to
take that edge off.
Myself down, just to bring me down enough. But I was so wrapped up in what I was trying to do with my exit strategy. I was just kind of like, well, this is all or nothing. I have to find a way and keep going.
I've just got a vision of you sat in the garage thinking this garage is fucking hemorrhaging money, and this garage also is the symbol. It's the thing that, all these years and all this work and everything we've been through, this is it, and I love it, and it ticks all the boxes. You've got the adrenaline from driving, the technical, the pragmatism, everything's like you said, and obviously it helped with the money and getting the money through the system, and you're there, and now you're sat in there. You've had those calls and you're waiting for the door to come through.
It's literally like that. And I was it would be in my garage. I had the reception downstairs, and I borrowed a lot of money to get it up to specs. It was pristine, it was beautiful, it was really nice. I made a balcony so that anyone getting the cars done could look over the balcony. They could play on the PS3 at the time, on a surround sound. My office is upstairs looking over from like a sort of panelled window. So it was great. It was my dream. And I was sat there, and like, you're right, it was hemorrhaging money. It was killing me. And I started thinking, this is just, I don't know what I'm going to do. I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do.
And are you thinking, what is my wife going to do?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking I can't afford to pay. I've got to make a choice. Do I pay the rent or to pay the garage rent? Which one do I can't afford both. Sometimes I can't afford any. So at that time, I was then stripping down the assets, stripping down the race cars, stripping down anything I had left in that garage to sell to keep the overheads paid, to pay the bills, to pay the wages. So I had to let a couple of people go, which was heartbreaking because I had 2 members of staff which were really good.
At the garage there, yeah?
Yeah. I had to
the legitimate stuff.
Yeah, I had to sort of like, I'm sorry, I can't afford to keep you on, which was, I think, the right thing to do at the time. I was left with me and one mechanic. And it was just, I could see that ship that was saving me. It was sinking rapidly. And then one morning came, it was 10 years yesterday, April the 12th, 2011. I was sat in my garage in the morning, and in my reception, I was just opening up. It was about 8:15, and it was a nice day as well. It was a warm day. I was looking forward to the spring, thinking, right, race season's coming up soon. Let's try and get some sponsorship. I'm thinking, if I can just get through the next few months, maybe it's going to be okay.
So is that just back on the timeline? This is April So those calls that you got were around Christmas, New Year's?
Yeah, New Year's Eve on 2010.
So you've had a couple of 3 months of kind of, were you getting sort of bits of information? Were you kind of scaling where you were? Or
I kind of engaged. I'd spoken to a brief. I said, look, he knew the score. I said, look, it's potentially going to go a bit wrong. There was a few things going on in the background, which I can't really say about, because although I did get questioned I was interviewed for a cannabis crop, put it this way, when I was Rwanda, I was interviewed about a rather large cultivation that was going on in Bristol. So there were a few things which might have been going on at that time as a sense of damage limitation, which didn't quite work out.
Okay.
Maybe that's another story.
Okay.
So yeah, but definitely nothing being sold coke-wise.
Mm.
So yeah, I was basically just sat there thinking, can't do much more than I am right now. I'm doing what I can.
And what's it like going to bed at night thinking, fucking hell, is it tonight? You know, is it on top?
Yeah.
Is the coke door coming through?
Yeah, I get in the 6 o'clock knock with a big red key. Yeah, every night, which is what I drank the night before.
Yeah.
I think it was a case of just drinking. I was badly overweight. You know, I was thinking, how am I going to get woken up this morning? How am I going to explain that to the missus? None of my family knew. Who am I going to, how do I, and there's all these different things spinning around in the head thinking, what do I say? You know, the fact of going to prison isn't the worst thing about this situation. It's people finding out, because they see me as someone that's decent and worked hard and providing, and I've had this filthy secret for all these years, and I thought that's going to be the killer, and that's going to be the worst thing.
Yeah. Well, that's your morality coming through again.
Yeah.
Which is the ironic thing about a story like this and the war on drugs, and because all those things you just mentioned, you were working really hard, doing everything you could, trying to build a future. It just all falls under the banner of something that we've decided. Yeah. People who want to use these substances and change how they feel for a few hours, they're in this dark underbelly world of ultimately criminality and violence and all that, because that's how it has to be because of where it is.
Yeah. Just
in the dark and under the table and round the back and all of those things.
I know, and that's the kind of feeling that you get, isn't it? You got this dark secret and you think, what are people going to think? So I'm weighing this up, thinking, when it comes on top, what do I do? So, I sat there, about 8:15 on the 12th, and from my seat in the reception, I could just see out through the door onto we had like a hard stand, like a tarmac, like a concrete area we put the cars in the summer, and I saw 3 dark cars, 3 Focuses just kind of come into view and out of view again, and I could just see the back of one. I thought, this is it. They're here at last. And I just knew straight away, although for the few seconds that they pulled in and were out of sight, I thought they might be going to another unit. When I saw the back of one stopped, I thought, I'm going to go out and say hello. So I just got up and I walked out and I saw these 12 officers, plain clothes, getting out of the car, walking towards me, and I said, good morning. And he said, Mr. Jones? I said, yep. I said, right, you're under arrest for blah, 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 blah. And I thought, yeah, okay, time to what do I do now? So it kind of I've been waiting for it all that time, but the gravity doesn't kick in until they actually say you're under arrest for conspiracy to supply cocaine, or Class A drugs, namely cocaine. And when I first started, the guy that used to sell me my 4 or 5 pills said to me, if you get caught and they arrest you, they're going to arrest you with possession with intent. You don't want to get done for conspiracy, mate. That's the worst one. Yeah,
because it's just endless.
It could be anything, couldn't it? It opens up a massive arena of what they could do you for. And when they say conspiracy, I thought, I'm sure he said something bad about conspiracy about 15 years ago.
And what's your composure like at this moment? Are you just in shock mode, or are you?
I think shock, but I just sort of just being me.
Yeah.
So come in. So we're coming in.
So you're as reasonable with the police as you were with the gangsters.
Didn't need to be, until the people doing a job, and I got a huge respect for them. I've never had any issue with the police whatsoever. And people won't always agree with that from someone from the fraternity that I've come from, but these people do a really amazing job. And the fact is, you're going to call if someone goes and if your child goes missing? You know, who are you going to call if so, you call the police straight away?
Really healthy attitude, that is.
You know, and it's important that I would never underestimate someone that's trying to take me down, because then that would be foolish to think that you're better than that. So I always had this healthy respect for the police. I just saw them as the other side of the coin. We're made from the same stuff, you know, just a different print. So yeah, when they came in, and the really decent officer, I won't say his name, but he sat me down, he explained what's going on, he explained the process. I said, oh, can I ring my wife? He said, I think she already knows. I went,
oh, you've been to the house.
Yeah. I said, oh, right. He said, don't worry, we knocked, we went in. He said, your kids are okay, your wife's all right. I thought, well, that's decent. You know, they could have said anything, they could have painted any picture they wanted to, but they didn't. They
just
said, no.
Put you in all sorts of strange psychological situations.
So I thought, right, so she now knows. Great. There'd been an incident that the previous year was searched before, but it was something completely random, which didn't really cause any major, so I could sort of quite easily fob that one off. But this one, it was unfobbable. Even if that's a word, I'm going to use it.
Yeah, I think we'll put that in the dictionary as of now.
I can't even say it.
It's brilliant. That's how good it is.
Yeah. Exclusive use, one time only.
We'll clip that bit.
Yeah, so they just sort of started to search, and he said, look, we want to go for a walk around the outside. Just let us know what vehicles are yours. And they cuffed me by this point. So he took me outside, and he said, oh, and I remember saying, I was with this officer. I said, he said, keep your hands down. Don't let everyone see you're in cuffs. So, okay, fair enough. I said, well, that car over there is mine. That's a customer's. And he was even decent enough to say, look, don't let everyone see you're in cuffs. Just indicate. I thought, what a decent guy this person is. And I actually thought, you know, he doesn't have to. He reminded me of me if I was doing that job. Yeah. If that makes sense again.
That's probably why, you know, that rapport, your energy that you're giving off. I mean, there's probably not that many criminals that get arrested at this level with this kind of consequence that are, you know, behaving the way you are.
Being civil about it.
So he's probably thinking, you know, because it does work that way. I mean, I've said it on this podcast before, even in my small experiences of being put in cells overnight, you know, I always remember thinking, right, that's it, game's up. Yeah. I've been silly, here I am. Yeah. And if I'm sound to these people, they're probably and then someone going next door banging and shouting and causing all chaos and just like
that's, Ross just sat there eating your lasagna and a cup of tea and he's getting nothing.
Yeah. And just causing aggro and chaos for himself. Yeah.
I know. And we sort of went through a process of the guy. So we're gonna take you back to the station now, get ready, get your process ready for interview. And all this stuff you see on the TV, and you are in shock.
Yep.
Definitely in shock. Because I'm sat in the back of that police car and I'm just like looking around. And they're talking to me, and I'm half listening, but they're putting me at ease a little bit. So they said, "Look, we appreciate it's a shock for you." And I'm thinking, well, it is, but I knew it was coming, but it is a shock because you've just started this journey. You're at the very start of this journey now. And I sat back and I thought, I'm quite relieved, quite glad now. Let's just get through this process, and I'm just taking it one step at a time. I'm not thinking about.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you thinking, had you been talking to your brief thinking, fucking hell, I could be looking at fucking 20 years. Oh, were you?
Didn't even think about what I was going to have for food. Didn't even think about what was happening at home. I just was in that moment. Yeah. Just living right in that very moment. And I thought to myself, well, let's just see what goes out now. Let's just take it as it comes. And I thought to myself, I'm looking forward to the interview. This is not
the average setup for this situation, which is what I love. I love it.
Yeah, I just kind of thought, well, let's just ride it out now. I'm on this ride now. I can't get off. Let's just treat it as an experience and to see where we go with it. So we did, and I got there, and they process you in, they take your details, and you go through all of the fingerprints and the palm prints and the DNA checks and everything else. Well, this is all very real. Stick you in your cell. It was a nice hot day. I remember standing up, looking out the little cell window, thinking, is this what it's going to be like now? Because I wasn't even thinking about tomorrow, or I was thinking, when am I going to do this interview? The next thing was interview. That's what I was thinking, one step at a time. So they said to me, when I got in, they said, have you got a solicitor? And this is how nuts it was. I said, I don't know. I knew I had one, but I also knew that if they know I've got a solicitor, and this is going to sound crazy to people involved in that world, they'll even think I'm stupid, is if the police know I've got a solicitor ready, then they know that I'm guilty.
Yeah, because you're prepared to.
Because I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
So my mind's thinking, no, I ain't got a clue, mate. And then I thought, shit, why don't I just say yes? And then I gave it an hour and I said, actually, do you know what? I do think I've just remembered a solicitor which someone said about years ago. Do you know his name? I said, no, but I know the practice. Right, what is it? Told them the thing. And they said, yep, no problem. They're on their way up. So I sat there for a good few hours in this holding cell, and it gets to about, I think about 7 or 8 o'clock. No, it was getting dark. About 8 o'clock, I think. It was getting darkish. And I got a report, yeah, your solicitor is here, do you want to have a chat? And this is when it gets real. Went in and sat down, and he said, right, okay, we got a list of names. I looked at the names, I thought, at this stage, I didn't know who'd been arrested.
Yeah.
It was just me.
So you're going to get to put it all together now.
Yeah, so I seen a list of names, I thought, didn't know that was his surname. You just know him as first names or nicknames. I thought, who's that? I'm trying to piece together who it is. I'm thinking, oh, that's all me. I said, oh my God, they've got him as well. I'm thinking, how far has this gone out? They picked up the guy down south of Bath. They've got him. I thought, Christ, oh my God, they've got him as well. They've got the fucking lot of us. Shit. So I'm thinking, this is bad. This is really bad, because no longer is it just me I'm thinking of. I'm thinking, what are they saying? And they're thinking, what am I saying? And we're all thinking, shit. So he said, you're happy with everything you got. Do you want to make a statement? He said, how do you want to deal with the interview? Me being a complete knob, I thought, I can do this.
I love this, Rich. I love this attitude.
So I said, look. He said, are you sure? I said, look. Yeah, I'm gonna. I should have gone no comment, but for the first interview, I said, no, I'm gonna ride it out. So I'm not gonna drop anyone in the shit. I might make myself look stupid, but I'm not gonna drop anyone in the shit apart from myself. And I was willing to accept that. I just wanted the challenge.
Really?
Honestly, I knew it was the wrong thing to do, but wanted the challenge to see if I could manage an interview without going no comment. I just wanted to see how it panned out. It was arrogant, looking back now, to think that me being sat on this blind interview, being questioned by the police, who've got all this intel and the whole story in front of all the evidence they've got. Bear in mind, they've been watching me for quite some time now, since September.
And this is what they do all day, every day. They're trained to say this to you.
To direct you.
Yeah.
And, and I thought, oh, I got this. So I sat there, and I kind of like, everything I did in my dodgy life ran a parallel in the straight life. So every single customer that I had that I sold drugs to, I serviced their car. I maintained their vehicle. I would have delivered the car to them on my lorry or something. So there are parallels with everyone. Everyone that was linked with the garage, there were a couple of people linked with my events, which I did, which also were involved with the drugs game. So communication between all these different people was plausible.
Makes sense.
So I thought to myself, well, every single person on that list I've had an interaction with through the garage. So I'm going to go with that. And I did. And it was going really well. About 3 hours, it was like, this is great. And they said, so you know this person here. And they said about phones getting switched off. And I said, well, look, I think so. We all know we got a straight phone and a burner phone. That's not said to the police. But I said, yeah, I've got my professional phone, which someone brings up. I'll say his contracts, hello, yeah, Rich Jones Launch Motorsport. So I've got my standard phone, which is used for just general chat of mates. It's nothing special here, but you're ringing all these mates. I said, yeah, but you cherry pick those mates out of a whole ramp of numbers. They're not the only numbers in my phone. But they haven't got these phones. They can't prove that they are or not. They've just cherry picked them. So I'm trying to sort of justify it. It's not working. They know exactly what's going on because they've listened to the calls, or they can't use that as evidence. They are privy to those phone calls. I think somebody with an.
Are you aware that they can't use this as evidence at this time?
Not at the time, no. I'm just kind of winging it at the minute. Just being a squaddy, winging it. And we get to the end of the interview, and this officer was really nice to me in the beginning. He looked at me, he just sort of like scratched his face, and he said, isn't it funny how all these people that you've got something to do with are also involved in the distribution of cocaine? And I said, I just looked at him. I thought, I can see where you're coming from. I can see how that could look from your perspective.
Yeah.
So, but from mine, they're also a lot to do with my garage. So what they do in their own time has nothing to do with me. So they are customers at the garage, and some of these guys work at my events. you know, so I would have reason to be in touch with them, you know, and they said, right, we've done enough there. And I was sat there thinking, right, that was all right. I looked a bit of an idiot at the end, but I think I got that one.
Yeah.
So this officer walks out, another one sat there, looking at me brief's going, you know, you didn't do too bad there. He said, I was surprised. You know,
And what did he say when you weren't going to go no comment, you brief?
are you sure?
Yeah.
I said, well, you know, yeah, I can do this, like an idiot. So next thing, I'm not thinking what's next. I'm just thinking.
Just quickly, Rich, is your brief privy?
Yeah. The brief was privy. So a barrister can't be privy because they can't defend you if they know.
Yes.
If you admitted to them that you've broken the law, they can't defend you. So you've got to lie to your barrister, basically. It's quite a good practice when you go to court, isn't it? You've got to lie to the guy that's defending you. Yeah, see how that one pan didn't work out too well.
See, it's always interesting with the brief, though, because a lot of people, myself included, you're never quite sure where you stand with the brief, you know.
No. I don't trust them.
Yeah.
It's all about that.
Yeah.
So this officer disappears out, and 10 minutes by, he came back in. He goes, stranger things have happened. I thought, what's that? He said, you're being bailed. I thought, I didn't even think about that. I didn't know what was next. He said, so we thought you were going to be remanded, but you're being bailed. I thought, great. And then I thought, oh, crap, I'm going back to the missus and explain to her what's gone on.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. They said, do you want a lift? I went, that's very kind of you, yeah. So they give me a lift back.
And the blues and twos.
Yeah. Well, actually, just stood in plain clothes. I was lucky. Yeah, I could have put the lights on to get me back a bit quicker. So we got back to mine. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. I had no phone, no communication. I'd rang her when I was in the station and said, look, you know, I've been arrested. And she was in bits, you know. So I got back and she opened the door. So she let out the window. She said, I'll chuck the key down to you. So I came in, went to bed, didn't really chat much about it because I was just tired. And we kind of I think it was just a case of just ignored what had gone on. So I'm going to get into work, open the garage up. So you going to work? So well, yeah, why not? So I've got nothing to hide. I'm going to go back to work and get on with it. So I rang the mechanic. So are you in? He said, no. I said, well, get down here, mate. I'm opening up. He said, all right, okay. And he was a bit surprised that I was ready to go back to work. So I kind of felt a little bit liberated by the whole experience. So whilst this is going on, unbeknown to me, my co-defendants from a different operation, I was arrested under Operation Kestrel. The other conspiracy was Operation Berlin, which was running in conjunction to mine. They'd had some arrests linked with their conspiracy,
Right.
kind of running in parallel to mine. So after I'd been nicked, I took a trip up there, kind of saw him. He was running a garage as well. I said, look, mate, we need to talk. He said, yeah. And so we went into the room above his rolling road, which was loud. So if there's anyone listening, they wouldn't hear us there. So I've been arrested. There's money outstanding. I said, look, what's happened to your lot? It's happened to mine. I said, it's coming on top for you. You're going to get arrested. You've lost, to my knowledge, I knew he'd lost one runner back in the previous November with 3 kilos coming from London. I said, look, it's mirroring what's happening with mine. I said, you're going to get nicked, mate. He said, are you sure? I said, mate, I am positive about it. I said, you're going to get nicked. None of your names were mentioned in my interview. You weren't on there. I said, but what's happening to you is happened to me. You're going to get nicked. He said, right, okay, no worries. So another month passes and I've gone signed bail in May. They've charged me then with the thing. So that's a step closer. Well, they've charged me now. So then I know there's going to be a court case and everything else.
And what is the charge of it?
Conspiracy to supply cocaine to the southwest of England and parts of South Wales. Not all of it, but parts of it. So I thought, yeah, okay, fair enough. And again, they bailed me again, so we'll come back next month. That was in May, so I sat there, and then come June, it comes to top of the other guys, Operation Berlin. So they all get arrested, and they all get remanded. So they're put into Gloucester prison. So their lot has been taken down. So I'm now looking on the forums, because that's where you do a lot of promoting, is on the car clubs, and the grief and the slating and the slagging off. It's unreal. Oh, I knew they'd be up to no good. And
Right.
all the people that were sort of like supporting and jumping on that gravy train and now turned against you. I thought, wow, what's it going to be like if I go down? So that's in June. Then come July, I think it's July the 25th, sat in my garage on a Friday, see two unmarked cars pull up outside. I thought, can't be. It might have been more than two, might be three or four. I just remember seeing two, and I saw a load of plain clothes walk in, different ones. I thought, looked up down at my desk, and they said, Mr. Jones? I said, yeah, we're arresting you for conspiracy to supply cocaine. I went, so fuck off, you lot have done this already. So come on. He said, no, it's a different charge. I said, how does that work? How can I be done twice? He said, you can and you are. They weren't so pleasant, these guys. They were a bit more like, okay, these are just good cop, bad cop. To be fair, one of them was pretty decent. One of them was a bit arrogant about it, but I think it was his first big case.
Right.
He was quite excitable about the whole situation.
Yeah.
So they, literally within minutes, they'll be back at the car, and they're driving me up to Gloucester police station this time. So they're from soccer from Gloucester. The ones from Bristol was soccer Bristol, which is now the NCA. So it's now soccer from Gloucester. So I'm sort of wandering up now, and I'm thinking, here we go again. I was sat in the back of the car looking around for I've done this before. I was going the other way down the motorway. Now I'm going up this way. And I knew it was linked with my co-defendants from Cheltenham. So we got into the station and got a solicitor. Yeah, given the name straight away.
So this time, this run out, your approach is a bit different.
I've practiced. I've run this one before. So my brief gets there within an hour, and it was a slightly quicker process. I'd got there for about 9:30, sat in the cells for a little while, and they said, your brief's here, so we can have them, then we'll have an interview. So the brief said, oh, all right, here again. I said, yeah. And he said, right, let's have look at this list, what they've given us. And they give me a list, and all the names on it were of my co-defendants from the Cheltenham conspiracy. But there's some names on there I didn't recognise. I don't know that name. These were like Serbian names or foreign nationals. I thought, don't know who they are. He said, do you know anyone on that list? I said, I know a couple. I said, but I don't know a lot of these guys. He said, what do you want to do? So I'm not saying a fucking thing, mate. He said, what, no comment? I said, no, nothing. I'm not saying nothing. So he walked in, he said, right, okay, good. He walked in his interview room, and they called us in, we sat down. I got this on tape, I think it's on my Instagram, the start of the interview, or part of it. So they give me the DVD at the end of it, and two officers sat in front of me, and this one's on DVD instead of just on recording. The camera's up in the top left of the room. He looked at me and he explained what he was going to do. He said, do you understand? Confirm your names. Yeah, that's my name, yeah. Then he asked me a question. I just looked at him like that. And he looked at his colleague, looked at my brief. I just stared him a bit longer and looked at his colleague there, looked at the camera up there. And he said, is this a no comment interview, or are you just thinking? And brief goes like that. I said, okay, I'll ask another question. And he asked, and I just looked at him again, looked at his colleague, looked at the camera, and I had that same routine, him, colleague, camera, for about 3 hours. Didn't say a word. All
so you didn't even no comment?
Nothing, not even a word. I felt like, at one point, my brief showed me something he'd written on a pad, and he said, you're doing a good job. And I went like that, and just, which didn't do me any favours, but I needed to make a noise of some kind. And I'm not being disrespectful to the police, but it was very satisfying because of how he was addressed. He still has professional, still had a job to do, but his attitude was very different to the previous experience. And I think even if he had a good attitude, I would still said nothing. And it's very satisfying to see him slowly deflate to this whole binder full of questions, knowing that he's now got to read every single. And in the end, it was like he was reading a book, because he knew I wasn't going to answer. So he read every single question over reams of paper and everything else. Showed me photographs. I just looked at the photograph, just looked at him, and went through the whole lot and didn't say a word, which it was nice. And then it finished. They said, right, okay, we'll be back in a minute. I thought, get remanded here. Came out, so we're bailing you. Went, God, again. So I thought, that's great news. I said, look, can I get my phone back? I just got a new phone after even as something that kept my other phone, it's iPhone 4, I think. So we'll bail you to next week, and we'll get your phone back off of forensics so you can have it back. So right, okay, that's fair enough. So went back. They didn't search the house, but they did search the garage quite thoroughly. they said, "Oh, the dog was going a little bit wild up in your office." He said we found a money counter. We can almost guarantee that money counter is going to come back with a high trace of cocaine on it. Just went like that. So yeah, whatever, mate. You know, it won't. It will, but it won't. And that was it. So that week went by, and explained to me wife. I said, "I've been arrested again."
How's she?
Well, the veil of bullshit was beginning to get very thin by then, and I was really struggling. But I just maintained that it's to do with other people, and I'm caught up in this whole thing. And the same story was with all my family. I hadn't even told my parents that I'd been arrested at that stage because I hadn't been remanded. I didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, why unnecessarily worry them about that?
Yeah, know where you are first. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see if I can. This might just all go away.
Mm-hmm.
It won't. Let's see if it does. So I've been belted the following Friday, which was the 5th of August or the 4th of August. I remember because I had an event planned at my garage on the 5th for an open day. And I borrowed the mechanic's van. So I said, borrow your van, it's going to go and sign me belt and I'll be back. He said, yeah, no problem. So chucked the van in a little car park around the corner from the police station, went in there and they said, how'd you get here? I said, I drove. So where'd you leave the van? So I put it in the short stay. He said, you shouldn't have done that. I said, why is that? Well, we're going to remand you. So what do you mean? He said, yeah. I said, why didn't you tell me? Why would you tell you that? You might have run. I said, yeah, but I understand that, but I could have said goodbye to my wife and my kids, you know, before you remand me, and now I've got a van stuck in a short stay car park. So I said, can I make a phone call? He said, yes. So I rang up my wife and said, oh, they're going to remand me, and she burst out into tears. I said, can you get a message to the mechanic, tell him his keys are in the police station and he can pick his van up from this car park, tell him I'm sorry. And I was already thinking, well, can you make sure the open day's sorted for tomorrow at the garage, make sure everyone's there. So she told a few guys who were friends of the garage, and they ran that for me anyway, which was great, apart from the vultures coming in and trying to take their stuff back because they'd heard I'd been remanded in prison. Right. So they remanded me in jail. So that was really when I was first going inside.
Yep.
So that was on the 4th of August, 2011, which it was a quite a slow process because you got to go to the magistrates' court first, and they will then refer it to Crown Court. Bruce said, don't expect to get anything from the Mads. They won't manage that case. It'll get referred straight to Crown. So they stick me in a hole underneath Gloucester Court, Magistrates' Court, and I sat there with this guy, surnamed Jones. He'd come off the street, been on the run for a while. He didn't smell too healthy, but he'd been inside a fair few times, and we were talking about it, and he'd established that I'd not been in before. And we were just chatting, and he was kind of like keeping me calm because I wasn't know what's going to go on. I wasn't scared, just unsure what was going to be happening next. So he said, well, we're going to get on the bus in a minute. My first time on a sweat box on the old prison transport. Mm-hmm. So we got on there, and it's a very short trip to the prison. I mean, I don't know if we even go... Yeah, we did go in a sweat box. I think one of them, there's a tunnel underneath where you can walk.
Wow.
I don't know whether that's Gloucester, whether you actually go from the magistrates' court to the prison. I know there's an underground tunnel which connects you straight away. I'm pretty sure it was a bus. I think it's from the police station to the magistrates' court. I'm not sure. Someone would probably know that. Mm-hmm. So we got out of Gloucester jail, and that was my first time into a prison then. And it was old. It's an old Victorian place. So I'm inducted in, or I'm gone through the reception process where they screen you and check for your dietary requirements, religion, all the stuff they need to know to make sure you're put correctly in the right cell and all your food sorted out. And it's like a baptism of fire when you go in there because it's unfamiliar, but for me it was familiar because it was like going back into my regiment again.
Yeah, I was going to say the regimental conditioned, everything.
And a lot of the staff there were ex-forces, or at least it was like, because I was called Jones again. That's great. I'm being called by my surname. I've been called by my surname for 15 years. And I'm being called Jones again. That's great. I feel comfortable with that. That's that discipline and that regime. So they picked up that I was ex-forces. It didn't really come into play at that stage. And they got me and this other lad, Jones, onto the wing. And it's closed by then. It's like, I think it's about 7, 8 o'clock at night. So the wings are shut down. And they're dead. And if you look around, it's all old, and the walls are sort of shiny, and the floor's been polished. It's like going into a basic training. Thought there's clearly people look after the place. It's clean. It's old. It's Victorian. It's got a certain smell to it. like a sort of concrete and paint smell.
Yes.
With smoke.
That's a good picture you paint there, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Concrete
weird.
and paint.
Yeah, very. It's
high ceilings and
very high. Lots. Yeah. So this one was 3 floors high. So it's not the highest, but it's 3 floors high. So they said, "You okay to share?" I said, "Yeah, well, he's a smoker, but better the devil you know than not." So we got put in this cell. And first thing I noticed, I walked in the door, there's a toilet. That's dead handy. I thought it'd be a bucket in the corner. Looked around, there's a TV on the wall. I thought, oh, it's got a telly. Luxurious. Straight away I'm thinking, I've lived in worse. I lived in I've lived in a turret of a tank for...
See, you I'm always interested with gentlemen, whatever walk of life that we are in, that transition from the police custody to jail, court custody to jail, I imagine in that ride it's like, fucking, I'm going to jail. And I imagine for most people, I've only ever done visiting, but I imagine for most of us who haven't, that first time, it's like, you're just calling on your experience of whatever you've imprinted in your mind, films, books, TV shows, friends who may have told you a couple of anecdotal stories and stuff.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that you've got that angle of like barracks, training, regiment, which offers you comfort, actually.
Yeah, well, they said people, the funny thing with being in prison is the only difference is that the barbed wire is on the inside of the fence in prison. On the army, it's on the outside of the fence to people getting in. That's the only real fundamental difference in the structure of the building.
So you're quite composed then, really?
I'm feeling, I've been in this environment, very very male orientated. I've been in this. I know how this works.
So that comes through in your aura. You carry yourself in that way.
Comfortable in it. I'm happy. I'm not saying I'm the one that's going to stand there and start stamping his authority. That's not me. But I'm certainly comfortable in that environment. I know who I am.
Yes.
I know where I fit into that, and I fit where I best fit. And so they stopped me in the cell with this lad, and happy there's a TV, happy there's a toilet. That's great. This is a result. I don't have to lie there contemplating. So the first night was a bit rough in the sense of I realised then that prison does harbour some people with issues with substance misuse and alcohol issues, and this guy was one of those. He was a drinker, and he was prescribed Librium to deal with his withdrawal from the alcohol. And because the med hatch was closed, he was administered that through the little flap in the prison door, and he cheeked it, which means he tucked it up in there, and he intended to do something else with that pill. And the first thing, I was led on my bed, and he's over there. So, you don't mind if I do this? I said, feel free, mate, do what you need to do. And he's crushing up with his prison ID card. So he's crushing it, and he then got a bit of paper, and he's rolled it up, and he's created a couple of big fat lines out of this
You
pill.
can't get away from this gear, can you?
No, no. And he starts sniffing it. I thought, why? He said, should I get a hit off it, mate? I said, okay, that's great. So the whole night was spent him smoking. He didn't sleep. He didn't have a sleep pattern. He smoked, he drank tea, he pissed. My head was right next to the toilet. So my first night was the sound of him pissing, and the overwhelming sense of this aroma of tea as he's pissing it out, and then the smoke, and it went on through the night. So I had a rough night's sleep, but I slept anyway because the whole day had been quite a process. And when it opens up in the morning about 7:30, first I'm walking onto a wing where it's lively. People are there, and then he says, right, you got to go do your menus. What do you mean? You got to go and choose your food for you. There's a list, put your name in it, tick your options and your choices, and that will then come into play in a couple of days' time. Right, okay, great. He said, go and get your phone pin sorted. I said, what's that? He said, right, so there's no real induction in the remand prisons. You've got to kind of just feel your way through it. So I need a shower. So I went up, I was on the 3s, and the showers were across to the far left. Wandered across, walked in, it's like an open set of cubicles. Had me shower, came out, and walking in was my mate from Cheltenham that I told he was going to get arrested.
Oh no, is that the next time you've seen him?
Yeah. He's been on that wing for like a month, and I said, all right, mate, how's it going? He went, oh my God. He had a massive hug and a chat. He said, we're down in cell, they're down on the 1s. Yeah, so what's the crack? And this was Saturday. And he said, we're all going to go to chapel in a bit. So, why? So we can go and have a chat. I said, all right, yeah, okay, I'll meet you in the chapel then. Oh no, sorry, this was on the Sunday. Saturdays kind of played it, so I didn't really see them. I think they were locked up on that day, or we were locked up. They alternated the wings and the landings. So I'll see you in the chapel on the Sunday morning. So, that's great, no worries. So I'm not a religious person, so I just sort of, well, obviously go there for a chat. I'll never forget it. I sort of joined this queue of people. They're off to the chapel, just it's in the same building, a little tiny room. It's not huge, a couple of aisles on each side, and some chap at the front saying what he's saying. I sat at the back and looking around, I thought, where is he? I could see anyone I knew, and he hadn't made it. And I'm sat in there, and for someone that doesn't, I mean, I respect people's religion, but I don't follow religion myself. I've never found it so depressed in my whole life. I was sat in there and thinking, I'm in a church, in prison, surrounded by people that I don't know, and what is going on? And it just dawned on me then that I was at that point out of my element.
Right.
I was fish out of water. I was in an unfamiliar, because I'm not really used to that.
The first time, it feels like.
First time. I actually thought, right, I realise now I'm in trouble now, I'm in prison. Is this what prison is? It wasn't, but that one morning, it was the worst hour and a half of my life.
That's when it sinks in, basically.
Yeah, because I had an hour and a half of just thinking about everything. There was nothing to distract me, and what I did is I actually almost went into this sort of like into myself. I just ignored everything in the room, and I thought, what's going on? Where have I ended up? Where did it go? So I know it went wrong. It was that first pill I took, that $30 back in '95. But I thought, where has it gone? So time goes by, we're kind of getting used to the regime and everything. There's a lot of, we'd all been arrested now. There's a lot of speculation and rumours, well, how did it come on top? We didn't know. We didn't know. We just thought it was just unfortunate that we'd all been caught. And so we're trying to get bail. During this time, we got the riots going on in London and a few other places around. And it's really kicking off. I can't remember why it was, but there's riots kicking off all over the place. And my brief said, we're going to post you for bail, but we're not going to put an oral application. We're going to go judge in chambers, which means it does it in the background. It's more of an agreement than anything else. So I think we'll get you bail. So, okay, no worries, mate. And I was kind of like, yeah, whatever. By then, my wife had come to visit me. My mum had come to visit me.
How did your mum take it, Rich?
Badly. Lots of tears and lots of me saying, I don't know what's going on. They're still lying, trying to.
This is a new phenomenon in the family jail.
Yeah, I'm the first and the only. Yeah, so I'm kind of like thinking, what can I say? I'm trying to sort of like, I'm still trying to wing it at this point, because I haven't actually been found guilty yet.
Yes.
I'm still going to go for a trial. So I got the support from people outside, which was important. And I don't realise now how important that really was, but it really did mean a lot. And come September the 9th, I've started doing this cooking course in the prison. I'm actually, the first time in there, I'm doing so much I'm really enjoying. I like cooking. We're in a little classroom, 5 or 6 of us just making like something simple like lasagna or a millionaire shortbread. But it's better than the crap on the servery. It's food you've made. I was enjoying it. And I went back to the wing after about the second day of this course. Rang up my wife or my ex-wife. I said, how's it going? She said, have you heard? I said, no, what's that? I said, you've been bailed. So what do you mean? He said, you've been given bail. Well, I'm still here. I said, yeah, but they're just sorting things out now, so you're coming home. So, oh, wow, really? And it's like, well, what's happened? He said, well, we've got to put up a surety, which means you don't have to give the money over. You've got to demonstrate the funds are there. So my mum put $7,500 up. My dad put $7,500 up. And a really nice couple who came to my events put up 10 grand.
Wow.
Which was like, wow, where'd that come from? So people put 25 grand as surety to show that had I breached my conditions, they would be willing to pay that money over. So that was an extension of trust on their part, which was really
amazing.
Big deal. Yeah, honestly, I couldn't believe it. I thought, without them, I wouldn't have gone out. So they had to surrender passport. I was tagged. So basically on the Friday the 9th of September, my dad picked me up from prison.
How was your dad?
He was all right.
Right.
He was all right. I don't think he's ever daft enough to think that I was completely clean, but he was also knew that I was possibly wise enough and old enough to know what I was doing.
And he just wanted to know you were all right.
Yeah, that's what they care about, that you're safe. And I walked out, he said, he said, you'd lost weight. I said, yeah, thanks, Dad, eating no food. What do you want to do? I said, McDonald's, please, Dad. Standard practice. So got there, not a couple of, I think I had a little breakfast. I went home and then they fitted my tag onto me either that evening or the following day. So I was on a curfew from 7 at night till 7 in the morning, signed in the police station for 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Don't leave the country. And that was my conditions. That was it. So I was pretty lucky. It was good. So I was on bail then until the trial was set for the beginning of April 2012.
So we were a year on from the original arrest.
Yeah, so imagine guys have been on remand for already a year, some slightly longer than that. So my co-defendant, the guy that I saw in the showers, that sounds really bad, he got bail as well, a month after me. So he was bailed because I got bail. His assurity was 100 grand.
Oh, fucking hell.
Yeah, because he was like the guy they wanted. There was one guy, him and Vlad, the Serbian, they were the two sort of like heading up, they were the next two up in the supply chain. So yeah, Vlad wasn't getting bail because he was a Serbian national. They knew he would have gone. So me and this other chap got bail, which was really nice. We couldn't see each other. We were allowed. Conditions said you can't see your co-defendants. Yeah, no worries. So we then had a chance to build for the trial then, and it didn't really come into play until the following year. I think January was the first one where it's a case of like, I think it's a plea and case management where you submit your pleas and they'll decide what they're going to do. And they had this anomaly, which was me. I was the only one out of these two conspiracies charged in both of these conspiracies.
Right.
So everyone else was either Kestrel or Berlin. Kestrel was count 2, Berlin was count 1. They had to manage it that way. There were about 13 or 14 of us all together across the two conspiracies. So they had to sort of decide what to do about me and these two cases. And there's things, what do we do? And they termed it as severance or joinder. So do we have two trials, and Mr. Jones sits on both trials, which is severance, or do we do joinder, which is we'll still have two trials, but Mr. Jones sits on one trial and we deliver the evidence for both on the first trial. So they went for this joinder and then where they'll have two trials, but I was on the first trial. So I was the only one on that trial from my conspiracy. Everyone else on mine was on the second trial, which complicated it slightly. So that started on the 4th of April 2012 for 7 weeks.
7 weeks?
7-week trial, yeah. A lot of information. And I was on bail, coming into the courts 5 days a week, driving in, walking into the courts. Found it really interesting. And I didn't realise how much in the shit I was in until they produced what's known as a jury bundle. And it's basically the prosecution's case against you. And we're all given one of these, so the jury gets one, and everyone's got one of these little packages, and you open it up and you look and you think, wow.
Yeah, when you look at it on paper.
Oh, that's impressive. They've got some, wow. And you start looking through, oh my God. And all these cell site analysis charts from the phone records and any text messages that were, there was never anything incriminating on text, but they still put them in there to add a bit of bulk. Added with a few surveillance photographs, which were ropey at best. I do apologise to the police for that one, but they weren't the best shots. But
I love the apology to the police.
But my counter surveillance was good. I'm okay on that. I did it for a long time, surveillance, so I understand how it works. So didn't mean I wasn't in trouble because it was a very good case. And we look at it, and thinking, oh, this is heavy. This is some good stuff. So the trial starts, and a lot of it is building the picture. The prosecution delivers a hell of a lot. Your defence will deliver their bit over a period of time, and it kind of flickered sort of backwards and forwards, prosecution, defence, prosecution. There were 5 of us sat in the dock at the time we were running trial. So there was there was my co-defendant from the show, I won't give his name, the Serb, then me, then 2 guys got not guilty, so I can't say their names. So they were in the dock with me. And when it came to the giving of evidence, the 2 guys on my left chose not to go up. They were in brief. They said, look, if you go up, one of them said, look, if you go out there, you're going to go to pieces. You are not going to manage. He will tear you apart. The other guy said, his brief said, if you go up there, they will question you about things which you are not going to be able to explain. So you're better off not going out there. Don't give them the opportunity. Your defence is best to remain as you are. my barrister said, you need to get in that box because you have to defend yourself. And I said, yeah, I can't wait. Again, that's same.
So you were thriving on that?
Yeah, I couldn't wait. It was the same. Adrenaline is that risk, that danger, the same.
That's interesting. So you kind of, again, I guess that programming, that ability to enter a kind of a warfare.
Yeah, I was ready for that confrontation.
Yes.
Although it's only like a diplomatic one in the conversation.
It's tactical though, isn't it?
Yeah, it was, and that's the right word. It's very tactical because they've got all of the cards. They see everything. I'm going in blind, and I liked those odds because I thought this is going to be a real challenge. You know, so if I've got to do it, let's enjoy it. Let's not sit there and cower. I mean, the Serbians, he played the what do you mean for the sympathy vote? He said, "Oh, I need to sit down because I have bad back." You know, so he went for the vote of like trying to get the sympathy, which wasn't working.
No, I don't think it does it, John?
No. He walked to the. I mean, I get on with him really well, but I did mock him somewhat when he got guilty. That didn't work out, did it, mate?
No.
You know, he wasn't too keen on that. But there we go. So yeah, the day and a half I spent in that box was good. I enjoyed it. You know, I didn't. There was a couple of stages I said things I shouldn't have said, associated with phones. But sometimes you just get reeled into it, and that's what they do. They're
of course,
really good.
they're beautiful at that, aren't they?
Yeah.
And what I wanted to ask you, just while it's on my mind, Rich, the first time you did get stuck into the interview, did that come back and haunt you?
Yes.
Yeah.
The final results for the verdict, I'll go into that, but yeah, it did.
Okay.
It did massively. So I managed to spend my time in the box, and I was happy with it. My barrister said, "Yeah, do you know what? You didn't do too badly." He said, "You shouldn't have said a couple of things, but I think we can brush over that." Yeah. But I enjoyed it. That's all I care about. I was already in trouble, so I might not enjoy it when just roll the dice and see where we go.
Oh man, you got some muster, mate, getting that attitude like that, you know, because it's do or die, I guess, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, you just kind of like think, well, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down enjoying it and smiling. You know, let's see where it goes. So we kind of all ran through that process. I think the hard thing was we got to we were up against a timeline, and one of the jury was going on holiday on the 19th of May, and I'll never forget this because the judge said, "Don't worry, we'll be done by the 19th of May." And I think, well, that gives us a finite time, doesn't it, of my freedom? He said, "We'll be done by the 19th," which was a Saturday. And "Don't worry, we'll be done by then." So we got to the week beginning, I think about the 15th, around about there on the Monday, whichever day that falls on to. And the jury retired for deliberation. Everything had been delivered, everything had been done. And that 3 or 4 days of milling around the courts, and you got to stay within the courts, apart from when you break for lunch. You got to stay in the courthouse, and you're waiting for that tunnel to go. Anyone in the case of Jones, so and so, please report back to courtroom 5. You're thinking, oh God, this is it now. We've all got our bags packed. You know, we've got our suitcases ready for going down. We're advised that bring your bags just in case.
Oh.
You know, so we're kitted up, ready to go.
How's your wife dealing with this?
Really well, to be fair. Really holding it. She's holding it in there because our boys are like.
How old are the boys? Yeah, that was my next question.
5 and 12.
Okay, so the 12-year-old, he's aware something's...
Yeah, they're both kind of half aware, but the youngest isn't really aware. Yeah, and that's something I'll go into in a bit if I can hold myself together.
Of course.
You know, so so the deliberation, finally on the Thursday, we had the message. So, yeah, Bruce said, yeah, they've come to their decision. So, God, and this was... I don't get much more nervous than I did at that stage. So we all walked into the dock, into the public gallery, and we sat behind our glass screen.
And what's the general consensus between you and your team, legal team? What are you thinking? What are you hoping for?
Well, my barrister's saying you've held out well. He's been very diplomatic in saying that I'm in trouble. I mean, Bruce going, what Bruce? Yeah, you're all right, mate. You've got this. You're fine. I'm thinking, what he's saying, he's paid more than you. Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking, well, let's just see where. Again, it's out of my hands now. I've no control over this outcome now. I've done what I can. Let's just see what happens. So we're lined up in the group of 5. I'm in the middle, and the jury, the foreman comes up and he stands up, and the judge said, "Have you come to a decision?" I said, "Yes, Your Honour, we have." And I just sat and I think, it makes me just anxious just thinking about it. And he says, right, count one. I said, how do you find Mr. Vujovic? Guilty. I look across and he's already on remand, so he just sits down. It's like this. Count one, how do you find my friend to the right? Guilty. In the public gallery, I just suddenly see his family go to pieces. And my wife's looking at me now. She's over there as well. And his wife, his parents, his brother, they're all crying, it's screaming, it's a travesty because he's doing the same as me, he's pretending he's innocent. I said, how did you find Mr. Jones? Count one, not guilty. And I looked up, I thought, shit, not guilty. And whilst I'm thinking this, my wife's looking at me like going like that. Two guys on my left, how did you find so-and-so and so-and-so? Not guilty, not guilty. So they're now free to go. So like, okay, and count two, how did you find Mr. Jones? Guilty. It's like, oh, crap. Looked at my wife and she just like saw her start to waver a little bit. Thought she's going over. So someone like sat her down. And we didn't get a chance to redo it. All I remember was the guys on my left picking their bags up, saying, right, see you later.
Oh, God, Rich.
They walked out that way, smiling, off down to the pub. And there's me being taken down the back. And the judge is, right, take the other three down. So off we went down the back stairs, me, Vlad and the other chap. And I thought, here we go again. So with my bag, and we handed the bag in and remanded into Bristol this time, which is an absolute dive. So that's it, been found guilty of conspiracy to supply cocaine. Not guilty in one. And to be fair, so coming back to what the police said, I was found guilty on the one in which I gave comment. I don't think it made any difference.
Right.
I'd have gone no comment, they would have still convicted me. They had enough to do the job. I tell myself that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So this time in the Bristol, and it's different in there. Gloucester was actually really nice. It was a laid back, decent, almost a good atmosphere. The general feeling was it was quite like, a bit of southwest full of carrot crunchers, we're all chilled out. Everyone's like, yeah, who are me, old babber, and it was quite laid back. Bristol was different. It was bigger, and it's always this prison that I'd seen or driven past on a daily basis, thinking, oh, one day I'm going to be in there.
Did you have that kind of conscious thought?
Every time I see it, it's on Cambridge Road off Gloucester Road, and the drive down into the main road into Bristol, and you can look up this little side street, and you wouldn't even know it's there if you didn't know it's there. It's in a residential area. Look down, you just see the edge of the prison, you think, yeah, one day I'll be in there. How long for, I don't know.
It's interesting psychology on your part.
Yeah, just kind of, I suppose, conditioning myself ready for the inevitable.
Pragmatism. You're a pragmatic man, aren't you, from the military, like you said on the arrival here today, you plan for the worst and take it from there.
Everything else is a bonus. So, Sweatbox again, and I did some film on this a little while ago. I was trying to do a YouTube thing, and I binned it off on the end, and I did a little chat about, sat in this Sweatbox going from Bristol Crown Court up Gloucester Road to this prison. Not the first time I've been in one. I've been in one twice before when I was getting bail and going into Gloucester, but first time I haven't been actually found guilty, so now I know I'm going away. I don't know how long for.
Yeah, I was going to say, we haven't got a sentence at this point.
No, we got enough time.
Yeah.
So I'm sat in the Sweatbox, I'm looking out the window, and those who haven't been in one, the windows are very dark when you're looking at them. We can see out perfectly well. It's clear as day, but you can't see a thing inside. And you're looking at the world going about the business, and you're thinking, I've just been taken from that. I'm put in this van. I no longer belong there. That's not my world anymore. That's not
that
me.
Feeling of being removed,
yeah,
literally
forced to be removed.
Visceral,
yeah, 100%. And I'm looking around, people going about the business. They're having a coffee. They're probably just going for it. It was probably about, it was evening. It's about 5 o'clock because the courts have finished, about 5:05. People going on their commute home from work.
And then the other two lads have literally skipped off to the Witherspoons and they're like, thank fuck for that.
Yeah,
and
they'll still be on Small Street off in the Crown Court getting absolute arsehole lot spacked. So, and that's that thing, you're not really kind of thinking, I wish I was there, and then you're thinking, but this is the hand I've been dealt with now. Yeah. So we're kind of taking this journey up and looking at the world, and I'm thinking, right, get me head around this, let's have a little think about it. So we got to Bristol, went in there, and it's a very sketchy feeling when you're sat in the holding cell. People from all walks of life, there's people which are in for drugs, violence, a whole manner of things, and everyone's sizing each other up. I know my mate, that's fine. So we got solidarity, the fact that we can both vouch for each other. Although neither of us looked like criminals, him less than me. Vlad had gone on through because he's already processed into the prison, so we're waiting to be processed again now. So we've already got this, we've done in Gloucester, we're now being processed again in Bristol. So we got into the room eventually, and I sat down there and went through all the same questions again, and he said, have you served in the forces? I said, yes. Yes, I did. He said, oh, who were you with? I explained. He said, oh, really great, no, blah. Yeah, I'm ex-forces. So nice to meet you, boss. In these is all boss or gov. You know first names. You have to call them. You have to be respectful to their position. So I explained what's going on. We got taken onto the wing. I was taken onto G wing, and the weird thing about that going on to that prison was because it was different. It was bigger. It was central Bristol, and I've got history in that town. All of it's fairly good, but there are a few people which are potential enemies. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, are they in there or not? If they are, you got to deal with it. And I don't want to be getting involved in that. Not in prison because I want to progress. I don't think that at that stage. I'm just thinking one thing at a time. So I'm thinking, we stood by these big doors, and the officer comes up with the keys, and there's always loud keys and chains banging. The doors are so loud. So right, go on, you lot. Here we go. We got our bags full of prison kit just issued with your plastic plates and knives and everything else. And I thought, what's on the other side of that door? I've got no control over. I know it's late. There's a chance I was going to be shut down. So he cracks the door and we go through a couple more onto the wing. We go onto A wing first, which we walk through, and it's huge. It's like Gloucester's 3 landings, A wing's 4 landings. It's longer, it's bigger. I thought, wow, looking up at the nettings across all the, when people jump over onto the railings. So you're thinking, wow, yeah, this is different. This is a different feeling here. All totally different feel. So they drop a couple of guys off onto A wing. So you're going to G wing Jones, straight through the G wing, on the first floor, and then on the right hand side, 2-man cell. Cracks the door. There's a guy in there, and he's on his bed on the bottom bunk. Walked in and said, "All right, mate, how you doing?" I said, "I'm rich, blah blah blah." And he was good as gold. I think he was in his. I was saying I was 42. He, I think, was in his mid-50s. He was in for a cannabis crop. That's fine. So we're just chatting, and he was okay. I got a good night's kip, and then the problems didn't really start or didn't really become apparent until the next day. I want to get on the yard, get some exercise. So I've been been cooped up all day. So that morning I woke up, I cracked the door at 7:30. I was going to have a quick shower. So I went across the landing into the shower room, which is just basically a big communal shower. As I walked through, some guy walking out, he slipped, and someone had taken a shit on the floor, and he slipped in it. And I looked down, I thought, but the thing is, he didn't care about it. He just sort of looked down like that, and whether it was his, I don't know. Right. And I thought to myself,
fucking hell,
I'll leave the shower for now.
Yeah.
So I turned around, walked out, and I'll have a squatty shower, flannel. Yeah. Just do that instead. Went onto the yard, and they called exercise, and there's 2 yards. I went onto the small one, which is the one they opened at the time. And it was a really warm morning. It was the 18th of May, Friday. It was warm, it was pleasant. I thought, let's get some fresh air. And so I need 3 other guys going out. So we walked down to this yard, and the staff opened the fence door, the gate, locked us in, and I'm walking around. I've done yard time in Gloucester. I knew where you walk round, you just go round in circles, that's it. And then this other guy comes up and starts chatting to me. So what are you in for? So I've just been found guilty for conspiracy for coke. He said, oh yeah, I'm on remand. I'm on remand for the same thing. He said, oh, have you had trial yet? He said, no, not yet. So we're just chatting, and he's telling me what his bits about his case is. It was a bag and everything else. I said, yeah, fine, mate. He said, what are you looking at getting? So I don't know. It's hard to say. 10, 15 years. We didn't get that for conspiracy. I said, I will, mate. He said, no, you won't. So, well, fine, whatever, mate. That's good news. And he just sort of stopped chatting. And then he chatted to this guy that was with him. I did a film else, and he came back and he started chatting again, and he changed his tone, and he said, I didn't do it. I said, you changed your tone, mate. He said, no, I didn't really, I didn't have nothing to do with it. The bag wasn't mine, it was my mate's. And I said, well, it's fine, mate, whatever. And
so he starts filling you in with details of his innocence all of a sudden.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm thinking, okay, that's fine. So I left that, come off the yard, a couple of days go by, and look around the wing. People looking at me really funny. It's a big wing, lots of people. And not they just looking at me, some were blatantly ignoring me. especially this guy I was chatting to, he was like, he would avoid me. And I thought, this is odd. So I'm taking exercise now on the bigger yard. And I've been there about 3 or 4 days, and I'm thinking the atmosphere doesn't feel right in there. And on this yard, and I saw through the fence one of my co-defendants picking up litter with one of the staff. So I mate, and he said, "Oh, how are you doing?" He said, "Get yourself on the B wing." So why is that? I said, "We're all on B wing." They all said, "We're all on B wing." Right, okay, so I put in for the transfer. Member of staff coming there the following day or 2 days later on a Friday, which was lucky because when I walked through the door, first person I saw was a guy that I used to do security with, and he was in on remand, and he said, "I haven't seen you for about 10 years, we're having a chat." I got put onto what's known as a spur, which some wings are big wings, other wings are little spurs with like 8 or 16 cells. This was a small eight cell spur. I walked on there, and Vlad the Serb had moved to a different job, so I nicked his cell, so I was downstairs. And literally opposite my cell was the guy that got nicked with 3 kilos from the other conspiracy. He was in there. The guy that's doing the rubbish picking, he was on the same spur. The guy that I knew from security, he was on the same spur.
Right. The gang are back together.
And the guy that I used to sell coke to down Oxford, he was on the same spur.
Right.
So I thought, I feel all right now. And they were chatting. They said, "Oh, we got you off the wing just in time." So I was like, "Well, they thought you were undercover."
Oh, that makes sense.
I said, "Yeah, I did feel there something." He said, "Yeah, we kind of like had a feeling."
They had you down as old Bill, basically.
Yeah. But that's the mentality of a lot of people in CCAP prisons. If you don't look like you fit, you must be police.
Yeah.
You know, so and that kind of stayed. They didn't drop that. Even though my co-defendants vouched for me and said, "He's definitely not undercover," they said, "No, he definitely is. He definitely isn't, because we've done deals with this guy for years." And even the guy that I did security with, he said, "It's no way. There's no way. I've known him for a long time. He's never been in the police. He's not undercover."
Does that resolve itself with these guys in the end then?
The stupid ones no, but the clever ones who got half a brain thought, "Well, maybe he's not then." You know, if you don't fit a certain criteria or category or talk in a certain way,
Mine's made up. Yeah.
you're undercover, mate. That's the way it goes. So I sort of fended it off, and the difficult thing was visits, because you do go into a holding cell with a lot of people from all the different wings, and if you've got guys from that wing who that rumour will spread, and it'll spread for their own entertainment. It's not, even if it's true, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, of course, it's something, isn't it?
Someone to talk about. Yeah, God, there is something. Watch out. It was one of those. So we were sat there basically in Bristol for 5 weeks waiting for sentencing, and we got to June the 29th, which was sentencing day. There was a second date, and they took us all in there. This time was the whole gang was back together. So what we had was 2 trials. The second trial wasn't due until August, so there's a press block on everything, but we still had to be sentenced and move through the system. So they got us down. I think there were about 7 of us for sentences. Some of the guys had been caught, had been on remand all the time. Some of the guys weren't. Someone like me had been in and on bail. And then we were sat down, and again, it's that, how long am I going to get? You're trying to work out the categories and the roles that you've got. And you've got 4 categories, 1 to 4. 1 is the highest, 4 is the lowest. 3 roles, leading, significant, and lesser. They put you on a table, and they then look at roughly what your sentence should be. It gives you the guidelines, and they'll tell you what you're going to get. I just thought, well, I'm about category 2, leading role, 9 to 13 years. So I'm thinking, maybe get a bit off for being a squaddy. Maybe I'll get a 10. I'm thinking 10, right? Okay, yeah.
And have you given that thought before this point, or have you considered along this journey, like, fucking hell, I might be 10 years out of the game here?
Yeah, my barrister, when we were preparing my defence, sat up in his chambers, and we were talking about attribution to phones. He said, "Rob, we got these 3 phones in question." He said, "Were they yours?" So I don't know the numbers. He said, "Well, is it possible they might have been yours?" I said, "Look, I always had a spare phone, a backup phone." He said, "Do you want to accept these phones?" He said, "I'll give you warning now. If you say, yes, these are your phones, it will be significantly difficult to get you off." And he was honest. He said, "If you say that they're not your phones, they'll produce evidence to say that they are your phones. So either way, I'm done for." I said, "Well, I have to go on the basis that they probably were my phones, because I did have a spare phone, so I cannot be sure." He said, "Okay, it's going to be hard to get you off." So I asked him, and that's another question, I said, "How long am I getting roughly?" He said, "You'd be looking at about 15 years. But that kind of like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, kind of like, yeah, okay, fine. That's just maybe just sort of like throw the number out there. So that didn't really stick in my mind.
They didn't sort of
I kind of
absorb
like
that.
no, it just sort of like bounced off. Yeah, right, whatever, mate. Don't be daft. You know, it's not happening. So yeah, so when we went for the sentencing, we sat down, the 7 of us, and it was again through count 1 and count 2. So he read out the sentences for count 1 first. This around the starting at the lowest, and it was like 5 years, 7, 9, 10. Then it was the 2 other guys at the top got 18 each. I thought, Christ, that's heavy. They said, well, for Mr. Jones of count 2, and he won't really, doesn't just suddenly say 15 years, take him down. He'll read a little speech, be a bit of a spiel first, and explain to you how he's come to this conclusion.
Okay.
And you'll sit there listening, thinking, right, and he'll say the biggest mitigation that you could have given Mr. Jones, we understand you served for your country. However, the biggest mitigation would have been to admit your guilt in the face of overwhelming evidence. So I thought, well, in other words, what? Not run a fair trial. He said, I'm faced with that, I'm going to give you 15 years. He gave me a year extra for not pleading guilty, which I thought that was your right to plead guilty, because the guy that got given 14 years, one of my co-defendants I was in prison with, he was put in the same level as me. He was given 14 years, less a third for an early plea, so we got 9 years, 6 months, 9 years, 7 months. I would have got a 14, but he gave me a 15 because I didn't plead guilty when I should have done. So he didn't take any of my service into consideration at all, none whatsoever. It didn't even make a difference, why would it? You know, you'd like to think it would, but it doesn't.
You know,
And that's what a lot of veterans face. They didn't get that. Break. So when he said 15 years,
fucking hell.
I looked across to the left where my ex-wife, my dad, my mum, a couple of mates, and they looked across at me, and I could see them all like, and I went like, I'll call you later.
So how in that moment were you?
Well, I just repeated it a lot. 15 years, 15 years, 15 years, 15, and I kept saying it. I was going down the stairs to the back of the court when the judge said, take him down, 15 years. And I kept saying it over and over again. Like in some way I'm trying to make it sound like it's less. If I say it quicker, 15 years, it's still going to be a long time. And what didn't help was everyone saying, oh, mate, I'm so sorry to hear about you getting 15 years. So, you're not helping, mate. And I got back to the wing in the prison. Everyone knew before I got back. I don't know how I said, oh, mate, I'm so sorry you got 15. Oh, my God, you are not helping. And I had to get my head around it. And I sort of went to my cell, single cells at the time. Photographs on the wall of me kids, me wife and me cars, all the stuff that I care about. Looked at my younger son, and he was like 5, just turned 6, and I thought, 15 years. All I'm going to do half. Looked at my oldest, thought he's 12, thought he's going to be a man when I get out. My youngest is going to be the same age as my oldest. And I had a good old cry, I must admit. I had a good old cry. For about 5 minutes, and it was proper uncontrollable.
Well, you probably needed that massively, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was quite healing. It was
is
needed.
healing.
It required that.
You've been through so much at this point.
Yeah, a lot of built up over that time, and it wasn't crying because I was scared. It was crying because I was going to miss my
reality of
boys.
it all.
The reality, yeah, it just got on top. So I had a good old blub, and I sat down. I thought, right, dried my eyes, right, no more upset. So I took my emotions, and Scotties do this. People can do this. I compartmentalised it. Took all my feelings, all of my love, everything I had for everyone. I stuck it in a box, a mental box, locked it away, and that's where it stayed for the whole of my sentence.
And how did the sentence go? You mentioned, 15 years. How does it work for people listening, watching? When you're given a 15-year sentence on a charge like that, what is the legal procedure? What are you likely to serve? What are the implications of things like parole and so on?
So generally speaking, when I was sentenced, things have changed a little bit. They've brought in things like aggravating factors, and they've always been there anyway. First offence, generally speaking, if it's a non-violent offence, no major aggravating factors, you'll serve half of that sentence. Right. It's already 7.5. I've done time on tag. I've done time on bail. I've done time on remand. So all that added together, that time on tag was a 12-hour curfew. You get 12 hours.
So that contributes.
That comes off.
Oh, okay.
So add those 10 weeks remand and what worked out something like 4.5 months on bail, because it was like only the half a day at a time, came to about 6 months. So already I've gone from 15 years down to 7.5, down to 7. So mentally I'm processing this time scale. My release date, now this was on the 29th of June 2012. My release date was come through 12th of July 2019. So I'm thinking, right, that's 7 years. Just over 7, literally 7 years and a couple of weeks. Still a long time, but at least I've got a date to focus on. And then you start breaking it down into bite-sized chunks. So anything over 10 years, you will then get sent off to a Cat B. You know, not a Cat B local, but a Cat B trainer. So into Loudon Grange. So I've gone from a HMP, black and white public sector prison in remand in Bristol, jumped on the sweatbox, we were headed up this way towards Nottingham. You know, it's the only Cat B they've got, which is being drafted from the southwest. You know, the other ones you've got, I think it's Dovegate and a few others in similar areas, but Loudon Grange was the go-to. I'd heard that it was worth going to. It was a private jail run by Serco. And we got there, I think, July the 8th, 2012, red hot day, got off the bus. Taken off the bus, escorted in there with your prop. And instantly it's a change of atmosphere from the very strict and rigid regime of a black and white prison of HMP into the private sector. And you walk in, it's all right, Rich, come on in. Rich? Yeah, my name's Dave, please walk on in, and this is so-and-so, we're your admission staff. First name terms, all right, okay, this is nice. You've got the names on the badges, you know, the uniforms are different. You know, they're all of a sudden they're in Serco uniforms, not HMP. I think, oh, okay, this is different. I quite like this. This is going to be interesting. I've heard rumours about these prisons. So said you're going to get onto the induction wing first. They asked the same questions. Have you done this? Ex-forces? Yes. Blah blah blah. You they issue you with all your prison kit, but you've got your own clothes you can wear now. You're in your own clothing if you want to, which is great. And I'm quite portly at the time. I'm still a big chunk after all my alcohol abuse and drinking and eating and all the things I wanted to do before I went to prison. So I really nailed it for a good few months before I came away. Well, why not? I'm not going to get it again. So let's enjoy it. So walked onto the wing, and induction wing was again very different. There was like a full-size snooker table on there. I thought, this is all right. There's a couple of pool tables, and its induction is different. So there are yard times, 3 times in a day, and you kind of just getting feeling your feet. Induction is always induction. There's always a little bit more lively than anywhere else. Walked into the cell. I mean, in HMP, the TVs are as deep as they are wide. It's an old-fashioned portable TV. There's a flat screen TV. I thought, that's all right. Put it on, and we've got digital TV. Yeah, we got Sky. So hang on a minute, what? Yeah, we got Sky. And we've got an internal movie channel, so they'll play a feature movie every Saturday night, or every night of the week. There's a feature movie they'll play, like plumbed into the whole jail to all the TVs. So I'm beginning to realise that you can actually have a good sentence if you engage properly. There's a phone in the cell.
In the cell?
In the cell, like a little portable handset, you sort of thing you buy in Argos, you know, cheap and cheerful, does on a cord, does the job. Now, what you do is when you go into a prison, you have your PIN. Yeah, it's a PIN which is unique to you, and what you do is you put your numbers on that PIN, and that when you want to ring up, you apply credit to your account via a touchscreen kiosk. So it's all biometric. You put your fingerprint in, put your prison number in, and it opens up a list of options. And these things, like, I thought, wow, you don't get this in HMP. It's all paper apps. You go into the private sector and you go onto this kiosk or an ATM, and you log on. You choose your menus. You book your visits. You can do your shopping on your canteen. So we get your weekly canteen come through. You do your shopping on there. You put your applications in, you apply for your gym sessions. Online shopping in jail. Online shopping in jail. Everything's done. Although it's an approved supplier and it's internal, it's still online. Of course. So I think, wow, this is a leap. This is a massive leap. So we're in the cell, and you finally get your PIN sorted out, and you put your credit on, And you just roll out your induction, and I managed to get myself enhanced. So you've got 3 levels in prison. You've got standard, basic, enhanced. You know, you operate on the IEP scheme. You go in as a standard. If you fuck up, you go down to basic. If you deserve it, you get moved to enhanced. With enhanced, you get to be on better wings. You get more visits. You can do more money. You can have more money sent in. The benefits outweigh. You can have an Xbox. You can purchase something within the prison. You can have a better time in your cell when you're in your cell. So I'm in enhanced. So we've gone through 3 weeks on this induction wing, which is 2-man cells. So right, you're enhanced. We're going to get you to your enhanced wing, house block 3, J wing. I remember walking up, I'd been pushing a trolley with my little bag of goods on. It's only like half a bag, it's not much. And I'm pushing the trolley up, and we're going up past through the prison. We've done our gym inductions and everything else, and there's a house block in front with 2 wings, and each wing has got its own yard. They're not huge, but they're big enough to do what you need to do on them. Each yard has got pull-up bars, dip bars, sit-up apparatus, everything you need. And as well as that, it's got a load of guys laid out there on their mattresses, sunbathe and listen to music. And I'm thinking, no way. And it's the middle of summer. These guys have taken their mattresses outside. The yards are open all day. They're just training.
Really? You can just go out?
Yeah, free to roam in and out. It's all enclosed on the wing, so there's no movement off of that wing. You just go from the inside. It's like going into your back garden. Go into your yard. It's the same sort of thing. So I'm thinking, this is going to be all right. They've all got MP3 players, headphones in. Some guys have brought the speaker from inside their cell, fed the wire through the little tiny mesh, and rewired the speaker outside the cell. So you've got music on the yard. And you're thinking, okay, 7 years, here we go. Let's get on with it. So you suddenly see how good you could have it.
And what does that do to the culture of the prisoners when you've got benefits and an environment that is offering a much more culture to your stay?
Yeah, I think so, a lot of people are looking at it and say prison's too soft because of all these luxuries that you get.
But do people behave to keep them?
Yeah.
Does it work?
That's the thing.
Do people respect it?
Yeah. If you want to have a good sentence and you want to have a good ride for your time, you behave, because you don't want to have those luxuries stripped from you, because there's nothing worse than being behind your door with nothing. You know, it's much better to have the option to go on a console or to watch a DVD or to use the phone. It's much better to have that option than to not have the option. So to behave is generally the way forward if you want to have a manageable sentence. And most people can behave. Some don't. Most do. But it changes everything, because then I used to love getting locked up, because once I bought my Xbox about a year later or 6 months later, I didn't care if I was locked up or not. If we had a 3 or 4 day lockdown where they're searching the whole prison, fine. Lock us up, man. Let's go on my console. I'll just dig myself into a game for a few days, and I'll lose myself for a few days.
Back out in the field on Black Ops or something.
Yeah, I know. Well, do you know what? We could, until Chris Grayling, bless him, he was the Secretary of Justice for he stopped doing it in 2015. He banned all 18 certificated games and movies in prisons.
Right.
So we couldn't, anything that had 18 on it, things like GTA 5 and COD, was seen as contraband, was seen as banned. So you had to hand it in. If you're caught with it, you lose your enhanced status, therefore you lose your Xbox and everything else. You get kicked off the wing as well.
Okay. So
after a few months, I moved down to another wing called P Wing, which was the cream of the crop, if you like. It was the wing to be on if you want to behave and you wanted all the luxuries with that. And that was great. It was just like we had five of us on there, our co-defendants, 5 of us on the same wing, 3 of us next door to each other. And literally, I'm not just making this up. I walk out of my cell, sofa there, and it was a cushy place. My mate was on the end cell, I was on the one in, the other mate was next to him. Sofa, fridge, microwave, ATM kiosk. It's like walking out to your lounge. So we each had a shelf on the fridge. So it was made that first couple of years of a sentence of a long stretch for me manageable, because no longer you worrying about what you're going to do. No longer you're giving off the impression to your family that think you're in there as an innocent man. They're not worrying about you because you think, I'm fine. I've got a wicked tan. I've been on the yard all day, listening to music. I'm losing weight. I'm training hard. So you're kind of like, they think, I ain't got to worry about him then. have a visit with my wife or ex-wife and kids, I'll be browner than they are because I've just been chilling out all day. I did have a job in the end, which was great. But yeah, the first 2 years was something else. You know, it was difficult. Visits were really hard though. I didn't like visits. I liked visits with friends, hated it with family.
Of course.
Because there's always that kind of, one is emotionally I wasn't there. Again, like I was when I was being a dad back in, we spoke about earlier, I said, emotionally I wasn't really in the room because if my wife or my sons would come to see me, I had no emotion for them. There's no feeling there. I was just sat in the room, just looking around and was just going to finish a visit.
And was that because you'd boxed it all up?
Yeah, totally. I had no feelings towards any of them.
So even when you came away and you just looked at your boy, were you able to keep that together when you went back to your cell? Were you able to not let it? It
was only the first time I let it get to me. The first visit we came in, and it's a big visit hall. It's a fair old size, loads of people in there. And we actually had quite a good visit. It's the first time really seen them. I think it was about 3 weeks, and it's quite a trek from Bristol to get up to Nottingham anyway. And we sat there, we had a really good visit. I was actually the first visit, I was actually quite much, I think I'd allowed my emotions to sort of like seep out a little bit because I felt the connection with them and everything else. And then came to the end of the visit and my son said, he didn't want to go, he wanted to go with me. I was like, you can't, mate. He said, no, Dad, don't go. And that, he was crying out. It started me off again. So I thought, oh God, don't. And I stood in a visit, I was just holding back my tears. I looked up and I said, just take him, please. So I said to my wife, I said, look, please, I said, just get him out. I said, I can't do this. It was really difficult because
of course
I could see he was suffering with it. And so yeah, that for me, that really cemented the fact is I can't allow them to see me upset.
You can't allow that to come in and permeate your feelings. And how did you talk that through with your wife, or did she just have to see you being stern?
She understood why I was doing it the way I was. I said, look, I'm sorry, but I can't do this with emotions. I said, I have to be strict with myself, with my mental health, because my mental health has always been unstable anyway. After being involved in that world for so long, I've always been slightly unstable with my depression and everything else. So so I kind of said, look, I have to do it this way. It's the only way I'm going to manage without losing the plot or doing something silly. So I need to do it this way to survive. And she understood that, and to a fair play, she took everything exactly how she needed to, and she managed it. She brought those kids up on her own. You know, not many people could do that without the support of anyone on the outside. Friends and family were there for her, but the stigma that was attached to her because of me was difficult for her to deal with. You know, and that was something she didn't deserve. That she didn't need to get that. But yeah, so that made visits difficult to the point where we kind of relaxed how many times I would see the boys, and I said to my ex, look, when let's not visit. We speak every day on the phone. You know, ring every day. We speak to the boys. We speak to when we know we're okay. I said, leave it until they say we want to see Dad. You know, see how long we can give it. Because with visits, and a lot of people who've done a long sentence will understand that your sentence really flows. When you get into your routine of your regime, it flows, and the days melt into weeks, the weeks into months, and the months into years, and it really does go very quickly. When you book a visit, you suddenly got this wall, and it's there,
and everything outside that you've managed to sort of make peace with for now, you're kind of back there, kind of. Yeah,
it's approaching. It's like all that emotional, that anxiety, everything to do with the real world is approaching you again, and it's horrible for me. I hated visits with friends. Different, you just laugh and joke. With family, I got to create that persona and that image that I'm fine, I'm all right, I didn't do it, all this sort of rubbish. So visits for me were really difficult, and it created mass anxiety leading up to the visit on the day. Yeah. And then very low depression after the visit. It took another couple of days to get back into that flow. Then you're off again. You know, you're dealing with, at that stage during 2012, 2013, we're dealing with proceeds of crime as well. And that's highly stressful because of the court's trying to strip you of any assets that you've got left. So you're dealing with that as well. You're hoping that they're not going to present you with a bill, which is way off of where it should be, and you think, however, whatever bill it is, I can't afford it anyway. So you're dealing with that as well. So visits weren't fun. But I got to 2014, did me a couple of years there. September 14, I was lowered to category C and moved to Oakwood Prison in Wolverhampton, which is another private jail. I chose to go there because one of my codies went there and said, this place is amazing. Single cells, phones in your cells, everything that you want is in there. It said it's the same as Loudon, but newer. So I thought, right, let's get down to Oakwood then and see what it's like. But all the time in the Cat B, all the guys that have done their time said, don't go to a Cat C too quickly.
Really?
Yeah, they said it's full of people which is doing different sentences, different mentality. They didn't say it's polite as that.
Yep.
I'm trying to remain respectful. They said, you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to enjoy it. It's very different.
That's interesting.
Different calibre of criminal.
Right, of course. Yeah.
I said, well, it's time to move on because I've always had this pragmatic approach about, well, let's be prepared. Let's be ready. He said, Cat D is the land of milk and honey. That's the one you want as open conditions. There's always these weird rumours in old wives' tales saying, well, Cat D at the minute, it's the last 24 months, but they're going to change in the last 30 months or the last 3 years. There's always this thing that the most time we're going to have in the open jail, the better, because of the home leaves and rottle and everything else. So I thought, well, I don't want to get to a Cat C too late. I need to prove myself in that environment in order to qualify for a Cat D as early as possible. So I got to Oakwood with 5 years left, or just under 5 years. Way too early, but I'm glad I did when I did.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you next, Rich, is, now you're in that flow of prison life, as you say, then we start thinking about the future. We start thinking about what we've done and where life goes from there. You find the flow in the jail. You've worked out what to do with the visits and how to sort of place yourself, and you've found the way to do prison, essentially.
Yeah.
Especially with your character. Did you shake off the police thing, the undercover thing, as you went through the different jails? Yeah,
definitely. Once you land in your Cat B, you're not getting undercover going to Cat B. It's a long-term jail. You're established. People did say, you do look like you're in the police. I said, well, that's done me some favours, hasn't it? It's meant I was very good at my job, selling drugs, and being on the wing with co-defendants. By the time we got into August, I think the back end of August that year, 2012, the second trial had been done. And then the reports came out. The newspapers could then finally launch their reports, which had been holding back. It's been on the press block for 3 or 4 months. So yeah, once that was out, it was in the public domain. Mugshots on the newspapers, on the TV. Google my name, stick cocaine in there, and Bristol, and up I pop all of a sudden.
And everything is as what it is.
Yeah, there's no denying the press. And all the stupid ones, which didn't believe it, I actually did take a newspaper cutting with me. So there you go, mate. Have I just made that up? So yeah, luckily by August it was public knowledge.
Yeah,
that changed things. It gave me that thought. And to be fair, I sometimes find it quite entertaining. If someone didn't believe me or they thought I was undercover, that's fine. They just avoid me, as long as they're not trying to stab me.
Yeah.
Which is a real possibility in the remand prisons. In the Cat C prisons, these things are more likely to happen. So yeah, I shook that off eventually. It was okay.
Okay, that's cool. So when do you start then to think about the gravitas of the period of time from leaving the services, where your life's gone, and what it might look like when you get out?
It's a good question.
Just pull your mic in a little bit.
Yeah, so I think what I was looking at while I was in my Cat B is you don't really think too much about a future. You don't plan at that stage. I mean, I'd had some ideas about what to do. Motorsport was my thing. That's my passion. I thought I'd love to find a way to get back into motorsport. And by that time, I was just starting to engage with the veterans community in the Cat B. And albeit quite a small amount of people, because Cat Bs, and I've not been to a Category A, but veterans got to stay fairly low key because of the risk of attack from extremism. So you don't really necessarily want to be promoting overly that you've served in the forces, because you could be open to attack, and that's, someone's trying to remove your head with a lid from a tin of tuna. It can be that severe. So you tend to keep it fairly low key, but I did start planning. I thought, well, I'm going to try and look at going into motorsport for veterans. But the problem being inside, you've got very little access to the world and what's happening in local events and people that might already be doing that.
Okay, so just quickly, so when you mentioned these private Serco set up prisons, you've got televisions, you've got digital televisions, you've got Sky, but not really getting any internet access or anything that can give you any knowledge of what's happening in the world.
No, there's no internet. You've got
people have got phones
news.
and
there are people who've got phones and stuff, but in Cat B's again, it's hard. I wasn't really into that side of things. I don't want to be around people doing anything which they shouldn't be doing. I could easily bring up my ex and say, look, does this company exist? Is anyone doing that? But I thought, I don't want to be bothering her with stuff. She's got 2 kids she's bringing up. I don't want to hassle her. So I kind of went blind into this thing about, I'm going to create this company and just do motorsport with veterans. And that's a great idea. And it kind of like sat there and just on the back burner in my mind as something to focus on when the time came right. So we got downgraded to category C. I say we because we as a collective moved together, or almost together. Went to Oakwood Prison, run by G4S this time. And it had only been open for a couple of years. It opened in 2012. And I was there in September 2014. And that was my eye-opener to a category C prison. And Oakwood is big. Biggest jail in the country then, and it still is now. I mean, it's Loudon's population was about 890. Oakwood was 1,600. So it's double the size straight away. The wings are huge. They're kind of like got 5 spurs on each wing. And a spur, I mean, as in an offshoot, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
One of those is healthcare and education. One of those is A wing. One's B wing. One's C wing. One's D wing. But as well as that, you'll have A lowers, A uppers, B lowers, B uppers, and so on and so forth. So you're trying to figure out how the configuration of these wings is. How do you know what cell am I in? Oh, you're on CD lowers or CD uppers, and CD uppers 35. So you've got this sudden code of like you're on. So C would be like the house spots were known as Ash, which is a VP wing, Beach, Cedar, Douglas, and Elm. Douglas and Elm were smaller wings, and I started off going on to Beach, which is huge. Moved on to Cedar, which is huge. This only over a period of over a space about 5 or 6 weeks. The aim was to get onto Douglas wing. Douglas was the long-term, as in lifers wing. And my co-defendant was already on there. He'd arrived there a year before me because he's doing a shorter sentence. I said, when you get there, I'll get you on the wing as quick as I can. There's a guy called Rocky. He's the manager. He's ex-forces, ex-RMP. He died of cancer a few years ago. God rest his soul, because he changed things for me significantly. He got me on that wing within 7 weeks. Normally it takes a lot longer than that. So I get you on the wing and give you a job. So what job we got? So we got animals there. Do you want to look after the animals? I thought, animals?
Well, yeah.
What do you mean? He said, well, come and have a look. So Douglas Wing was, it's an oasis in this kind of desert, if you like. It's something special about it. Anyone who's been to prison, if they've been to Oakwood, if they've lived on Douglas Wing, they'll know what I mean. It's just like unreal. And I'll go into that in a bit. So I walk through the wing. Everyone's civil. Everyone's doing a lot. The thing with lifers wings is when you get to a lifer's wing in a Cat C, these guys have been in prison already done 10, 15, 20 years inside. Because they've gone through the A's, down through the B's, into the C's. These guys have done some lumps.
Yeah.
And they're settled. And if these guys are happy to welcome you into their circles, it means that you're in for a fairly nice ride, because these guys have got everything sorted. So I walked through this wing and out onto the yard. Again, we've got all the equipment there. And at the back, there's like an enclosure through another fence full of rabbits and chickens and guinea pigs. And he said, do you want a job as your animal carer? I said, yeah, why not? So we can pay you 15 quid a week, which is twice the amount.
Fucking hell, that's good money, isn't it?
For prison, it's not bad.
Jesus.
For HMP, like £6 or £7 a week. Dropped down from Cat B in Loudon, I was on 65 quid a week doing recycling. Horrible job, but good money. Loads of good perks. So yeah, I'll look after the animals. So the job was to look after the chickens, the rabbits, just animal care. They also had across across the road within the prison there, between the two main house blocks, a pond and an area called Farms and Gardens, which was, as it sounds, like horticultural section. And they had a pond there with some ducks. And the thing about their ducks is they lay duck eggs. And my job was to go every Saturday, make sure they got food topped up and collect any eggs. They wouldn't lay them very often. When they do, that was my perk of having a duck egg. So on my breakfast on a Saturday morning, I'll poach a duck egg in my kettle and have a nice big rich duck egg with breakfast, which was a luxury that no one else had in that prison.
Yeah, I'll bet.
So he gave me this job as the animal care, which seems quite random. And then we moved into February 2015. He said, right, we want to give you another job as the veterans in custody rep. I said, how does that work? He said, well, we got a couple of reps already. He said, but to be honest, they're not really doing very much with it. Truth is, they've done nothing. They're just taking a rep's wage was a bonus wage, £5 a week. You could do that on top of your normal job. So you could have a regular job paying you £15, £20, and a rep's job you get paid an extra £5. So it's just kind of bumped it up a little bit. I said, yeah, I'd love to do it. So basically, I got the other reps up together. I said, look, what are we doing? They said, we're not really doing anything. I said, do you mind if I get on it and sort it out? Yeah, feel free, mate. Because they were just on it for the ride. So I was given a list of names printed out of all the different locations these veterans lived, all their cell locations. It was out of date. And I spent a couple of weeks going around the prison, seeing how current the list was. And then from there, I then kind of took it on as a very passionate thing to do. I bet, yeah. I started engaged with the admissions department, the reception, where anyone comes, if they're a veteran, let me know, highlight that, and we go onto the induction wing and we go on every time. Any veterans in today, we pick them up on a daily or weekly basis. And so we took the veterans rep from the veterans community from nothing to something was happening. We started holding monthly meetings. We started getting things like SAFA, which is a big charity, and to come in and engage with the guys with the due out, support the families on the outside. So I was doing this from sort of February 2015. And one of the other jobs I had was working in resettlement, and it was working with probation and everything else. And a lot of the jobs included delivering presentations to lads when they just come into jail about what the prison is. So I could pick the veterans up straight away. And what I found out was that most of the veterans that come out to talk to them, we suffered the same problems with our transition. We come out of the Army or Navy or Air Force. Predominantly the Army, we'd suffer with our transition, with our risk-taking behaviour, with the drinking, the things that go on in the NAFI, all the stuff that we've sort of buried and done gets us in trouble. And we found a lot of guys coming in for dealings with the mental health. Substance misuse was a big problem amongst the guys. So I sat there in my job in resettlement. I had this access to a laptop. We manned an advice centre, so people from the cells could ring up this number and say, look, I'm a bit stuck. Can you advise me on this? And we say, yeah, well, you do this. Go and see this member of staff, or we'd signpost them. So I sat on this thing and I thought, I wonder if there's any courses sort of specifically designed to cater for veterans in prison, because when you go into prison, your offending manager and probation will set you a sentence plan. And this might include something like, don't get in trouble, don't reoffend, do a course. You're in for anger, we'll do an anger management course. You're in for drugs, we'll do a substance misuse course. So I asked the guy that's in charge of the intervention, I said, look, is there anything for veterans? Specifically, not general, but I want to know, is there anything exactly written for veterans? He got back to me a couple of days later and he said, no, there's nothing. We've got nothing on record. There's no evidence of any courses written for veterans at all. So, right, okay, no worries. So I went back to my office job in the prison, and I thought, right, I'm going to write a course. I was in front of a laptop, 4 or 5 hours a day, manning the phones, and they only rang every now and again. I thought, I'm just going to hammer out a course. So I basically sat down and looked at, reflected on my whole life. And this is the thing about the reflection of my life, about when did I realise I'd gone wrong. And I came out of 12 modules. It was 11, but one of them's irrelevant. And these were focused on all the problems I'd faced. And I'm going to forget them. So the first one was mentality and risk-taking behaviour. Second one was relationships. Next one was trust. Then it was substance misuse. Then it was mental health. Then it was looking at dealing with charities. Then the next one was looking at being realistic with expectations. Then it was employability. Then it was looking after yourself. Then it was custody. And then it was a prison visit. So I did it. 12. It was 10. I think that's them anyway. So I wrote a course on these 12 modules. And basically what I did is sat there and I asked myself, based on each module, as many questions as I could. Why did I join the army? Why did I leave the army? Did I see combat? Did this happen? Did that happen? And I did a list of questions on all these different modules, and I created a course over that. Completed after about 3 months of writing, and I spoke to the interventions manager, who changed by then of the new one. I said, look, can I deliver this course to veterans in custody? They said, let's have a look at it first. So they took it and had a look at it, and they came out and they couldn't believe what I created. They said, wow, we've never seen anything like this. This rivals any course we've got in the prison. Wow. with the sense of the content and the delivery. So I put all the things like summarising, conclusions and introduction. Did
you have any sort of background in anything like that, or was this...
No, I've been given a course as part of my sentence plan back in Loudon Grange.
So you had kind of a loose template of something?
Yeah, I thought, well, he's delivered that, so he's obviously got a provision to deliver, so he must be, this is clearly what sort of thing he's got in front of him. So yeah, so I kind of developed this course, and they said, look for a pilot scheme, or do some case studies first. So I delivered 5 case studies to individuals across the prison, and I did a sort of pre-course report and a post-course report and a questionnaire, and it just showed the difference between how effective the course was. So if they answered the questionnaire prior to starting, give them the same one at the end, tally the difference. If they've answered more at the end, it's had a positive outcome. Every one of them was showing a massive improvement, so that's good. So then the director of the prison got on board, who's the private version of the governor. And he said, I like it, I like what you're doing, so we want you to deliver a pilot now. So we're going to give you a room in the prison, just you and these veterans. Doesn't happen. Normally you've got a member of staff that we're going to give you a room. We're going to give you refreshments. We're going to give you all the stationery, everything you need to run that course.
They're giving you a hell of a lot of trust.
Yeah, a huge amount of trust. I'm already in a very trusted position anyway, but more trust again. So I started the pilot course in 2017. Ran 5 courses across that. Again, everyone showed improvement. So 2018 came in. So right, we want you to start delivering the course properly now. So deliver another 4 courses over 2018. Not many, but I want to keep the numbers right and keep it controlled just to monitor it. And again, what the guys on the course found out is the way the course was written, we've all suffered a similar, maybe different offence, we've all taken a similar journey. The way the course is designed is we all start at the beginning. Why did we join the army? And we all take this journey together. It's sequential. We go through our experience, and then the back end of the course is about healing. It's about talking about what we can do for the community, where can we go, what transferable skills have we got. And the overwhelming sort of result was that the course worked for everyone that took part of it, including guys with the mental health as well. So in 2019, when I was due for release, back in 2017, I was given the opportunity to be a category D, i.e. lowered down to open conditions. And I thought, I don't want to go. I've been waiting to go to open conditions to a local prison near to where I live, because I go home on weekends, I go home on day releases, I can work locally, but I won't be able to pursue this course. I won't be able to finish it off. I won't be able to iron out a deal with the director. So I chose to stay in closed conditions as a Cat D prisoner. So from 2017, I got my Cat D early, because I got there early. It worked. I got there for like 20, instead of 2.5 years, I had like 2 3/4 years, which is a result in my eyes. I was given a job working outside of the prison in the visits hall, and I was given a job to come in and deliver the course to the veterans in custody. So one day a week I'd stay in and deliver the course. The other 4 days or 5 days a week I'll go out and work in the visiting centre outside the prison. And then I was starting to go home on weekends. So I chose to stay at Oakwood, and the flip side was that opportunities there were really good. We had a great link with local bases. RF Cosford was one of them. And we did a couple of talks where it got me into public speaking. I was invited with the OMU department, which is the offender management unit within the prison, to go to Imgin Barracks in Gloucestershire. I was in Innsworth, I think. And it's like an admin. It's kind of like where the RMPs are based. And it's like a main central headquarters. And it was to deliver a presentation on veterans in custody and the offending rates in veterans. And never done a public sort of presentation before, and we sort of got there, and the aim was I'll be there with a couple of members of staff, OMU, people that I knew, people that I was working with in the visiting centre, who was an ex-forces guy as well, a chap called Robbie, who's good as gold. We're really close friends now. He's ex-prison officer as well. And we got into this auditorium, if you like, and it was starting as a proper deal. You got like the seats in front of you, the big screen behind you, very military, you know, and sat, I'm absolutely shitting myself and thinking, I've got to do a talk now about...
You're more nervous than that than you were going in the talk.
I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. I think it's because these people meant so much to me. So I kind of sat there, and we had a few people doing different talks about their experience of crime and everything else, and the person in charge of the Major Robinson Kirk, she's brilliant. She said, well, we've got some people from HMP Oakwood now, we're going to talk to you about how they deal with veterans in custody. And no one knew I was a prisoner at the time. I was on release on temporary licence. So some of the guys I was with did a little talk. They said, we're going to hand you the Rich now, who runs our veterans in custody. So they haven't given it away. I stood there, and there's a room about over 100 people, high-ranking officers. I looked at them all, I said, right. So I got two numbers. First one was my RE number, 24840691. Second one was my prison number, Alpha 4552 Charlie Foxtrot. And you could hear a pin drop. And they just looked at me. I said, don't worry, I haven't escaped. I'm on release on temporary licence. And they suddenly realised that I was a prisoner. They didn't understand how it worked. They didn't realise that you could be released on a day release. I told them about my journey, not as detailed as we've done today.
Of course.
But bullet pointed it all the way through. And the questions they were coming up were so, and no disrespect to the people in that crowd, because they just didn't know. They're so naive to what waits them outside of those walls of being in the forces. Why did you get involved in crime? Couldn't you have just done it this way? Or, you know, was it about the money? Or, and then I said no. And I answered every question correctly. There's not really a right or wrong answer, just there is the answer I've got. And at the end, the good thing was they came down, shook hands, said thank you for that. You know, we appreciate what you've done. And it gave me a boost, if you like, to think, right, I'm doing the right thing now. This is where I need to go. This is what I need to be doing, because I'm comfortable now speaking to groups of people, however many there are. I've done a few more since. I've done one at Cosford, 22 signals, which was horrendous. 200 junior ranks. Didn't want to be there. They'd been ordered to be there. I just got out of prison. That was rough, but I got through it alive. The biggest one I did, we hit a liaison. I've done a lot of work with West Mids Police, are way ahead of the mark with supporting veterans who are getting caught up in the CJS. So they came into Oakwood a few times. We've got some really great people in the West Mids Police who are doing so much. And they invited me to do some work with them and to just talk about, to some other officers, about Project TLS, which is what my course was called. And my journey to understand how I can help them about interventions with veterans and how they can help me and what can we learn from each other. And they put me in touch with a chap from Bristol Haven in Somerset, Sergeant Jones is an MBE now. And he said, come down to Bristol, meet me on one of my day release, we'll have a chat. And he said, we need to get something put into Bristol. We haven't got anything really going. He said, can you come and do a talk at Portishead Training School, which is where they train the police in Bristol? I said, yeah, I'd love to. So I went down there with a chap called Cormac Doyle, who delivers the mental health provision. He does a lot of work with PTSD, which is the chap that treated me. We did a bit of a talk about things, and we went into this training centre in front of the constabulary that had arrested me and put me away. And that's the most nervous I've ever been.
Okay.
So I'm stood in this, again, a proper briefing room at the front, and Sergeant Jones explains what he's going to do, and he's in this very sort of dynamic setup where they look at options, how they can improve policing and how they can engage with the community and just fix problems which need fixing. They said, we've got Rich Jones here, and some of them in the crowd knew me from past.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously done their research.
Mm-hmm.
And I was terrified. I was I was so nervous I could hardly speak to start off with. It took a while to get me going. And I finished it. I got it across okay, and there was an inspector in the front, and he looked at me, he said, "You're our worst nightmare." He said, "You've got better training than us. You're on the wrong side of the law." Said we have to deploy so much money to catch people like you. Said, "You're a nightmare." I said, "But thank you for what you've done." I said, "I'll take that as a compliment." He said, "It is a compliment. I don't mean any malice in that at all." He said, "You are our worst nightmare, people like you." And I thought, I'll take a positive from that. I have to. And off the back of that, they then created this Veterans Champion scheme in Bristol, Avon and Somerset, where anyone that's served in the forces, or people that haven't, people that are friendly to veterans, will start looking at interventions. So any veterans that are picked up, they'll start looking at why they're being arrested, what's the triggers, what are the problems, and start looking at helping them rather than locking them up. So we started that back in 2017 or 2018, sorry. So that was a really big deal for me.
That's huge, Rich.
Yeah, but we're trying to push it with COVID. It's all kind of like on the low key at the minute.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those, it'll pick up again.
So when you were compiling and creating this initial kind of questionnaire stroke course, and you were asking yourself all those questions, did that give you answers for you, as it would for the guys who were going to take it and what it was intended for? Did that give you some, I don't know, some kind of cathartic knowing of at least how you've arrived where you are? Yeah,
more so when we're working with the lads. If we had a course of, say, 7 or 8 people, the plan was to sit around a table, drink coffee, eat biscuits. It's right, guys. First one, why did you join the army? Oh, I'll tell you why I joined. I hated my stepmom. She's done my head in. I want to get away from her. How about you, mate? Oh, mate, yeah, I had the same thing. It was, just couldn't get on at home. I was having a bad time at school. And then we go around that and we create this dynamic. It's like a conversation starter. And sometimes the next question might already be answered. So I'll be sort of looking through these list of questions in this order. I'll say, right, yeah, so what do you reckon about this then, mate? And I might say, did you have what was employment like? Was it okay for working in the neck of the woods? Nah, it was crap, mate. I wasn't really interested in working. And so we'd establish these things, and we discovered all these very basic, fundamental realities that we were very similar in our upbringing.
Shared experiences, yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of creates that sort of feeling of euphoria that you weren't on your own. It wasn't a problem with you. It's the product of your environment, and we just found the way to get out of that environment and make the best we can. So what we found from that journey together was that we all come to a point where we have to get out, and it's identifying where our triggers were, where our problems were, where we might be inclined to go and do something wrong. Why do we do that? Is it because of mental health? Is it because of what we've been exposed to in the forces? So through that process, we identify, and I can identify what people's problems were, where their triggers were, where they're likely to go wrong. Have they been suffered to abuse when they're children, which is quite common in the forces? Is that why they're in for domestic violence now? I'm not condoning that, but if they're a victim themselves, they're going to portray these characteristics.
That pattern can continue, can't it?
Yeah, so we kind of identify all these things through the course, and it is very healing. And the more that I did the course, the more it flowed. I changed it a few times. It was an organic process. So it made a massive difference. So for you, when you finally leave jail, your time is done. You did it. You set out and did it how you wanted to do it. You ride out all the challenges. I'm sure there's stories, classic prison stories in there along the way, and they'll come out elsewhere, I'm sure. But what I'm interested in is when you get out of jail, you've obviously got this initiative going. You've turned the corner in your mind. You've seen what you can put back into the world now, using all that experience, that journey, the military, into the party culture, into the business end of drug culture, and ultimately, arriving in the jail, and then putting all that together and coming back home, coming back round to, trying to help people in the military and how they integrate and not take that path that you took. So how did you feel stepping back into your life with your boys, with your wife? How did that? Yeah, that was the hardest thing, because the release on temporary license is very gradual. So when you get to your last 24 months, you start looking at going home on a day release. Now, I was in Wolverhampton in Oakwood and family from Bristol, so it would require taxi journey, trains. So you're looking at 2 or 3 hours each side of the day for travelling. And Oakwood are really good. They facilitated everything. They paid for the taxi to get you a travel warrant.
Really?
They'd even give us a little bit of money to spend because they know that prison wages don't go very far. And that money's there as an emergency if you do have to get, if for some reason you want to get back in another means, you've got to give fuel for a car. Mm-hmm. You've got that as an option. So Oakwood really cater for this because they don't very often do category Ds from a closed jail, not in Oakwood. Right. I was the first person to go out and do a full over 2 years Cat D in the history of the prison. No one else had done it before. To not get pulled back in for something they'd done wrong, i.e. drinking, smuggling, being late. So I was problem free. So I was lucky I got the full benefit of all the roles. So the gradual process was, I think the first time I had a home leave, we were given a result, me and this other chap. We conducted several successful day releases. And they said, we're going to give you some overnighters now, way ahead of when you should do. You can go in for 4 days, which is like, what? I said, yeah, but we're only at this stage. I said, you don't get that until the last 9 months of your sentence. I was still at 18 months at this stage. It was the back end of it was October 2017. I wasn't due my first overnighter, I think, until October the following year, a year ahead of when it should have been. So this was a massive extension of trust. So I thought, I'm going home, and I was nervous. I've been home for the days, and I found that going home, walking into the house for the first time, walking through those doors, the last time I walked out of those doors, I was in a suit.
So you managed to retain your home and everything?
Yeah, we were renting. So the conscious thing I did when I was at it, because nobody knew what was going on, I thought, I can't buy a home, put a family in that home, knowing that we could lose everything if it comes to a pocker. Better to rent. It's easier to move. I have to move quickly. And if it does come on top, they're not going to lose the roof over their head. So I always had that in mind. So I never invested into anything which I wasn't willing to lose straight away. So that's just how it was. That's how I did it. Mm-hmm. So I went back to the same house. And I'm already very, very sketchy. I'm quite hypervigilant. I'm very anxious because all these conditions have manifested themselves. Not while I was inside, but when I started coming outside. Inside, you're safe. Mm. You're in this bubble, you're okay, you're in an environment, you're okay. When I started coming outside back into my home area where I was used to dealing, all these things, I was looking over my shoulder all the time, I was like, it was just getting too much.
Shadows of the past.
Yeah, it was too much. It was affecting me. And plus, emotionally, I wasn't there. Not one little bit. I walked into the house and saw my wife and my kids, and I thought, they're just people.
Really?
They're just people. I know I love them, but I don't feel that emotion. I haven't got that connection because it's been buried for so long. For like 5 years, this emotion has been boxed off since that day that I got upset. So I kind of like just went through the motions of being there, being a dad, being a husband, and I just didn't feel like I fitted, didn't feel like I belonged. And we would go to see my mum, my brother, my nephews. We'd have a McDonald's, sit around, and I'd sit and I'd almost have an out-of-body experience, sat there thinking, I'm not really part of this. They're all current. And it was the same as we spoke about being in the nightclub, about being this satellite on the outside. There I was again, this satellite on the outside. I wasn't part of this family. I know I was, but I didn't feel like I was a part of that family. So I just thought, I can't do this. This is just doesn't feel right. So this kind of went on for the whole rottle process. In fact, it got progressively worse because the more I was going home, the more I was expected to be a part of that family, the more I was expected to have this emotion, this attachment, but it just didn't come. And it stayed like that. And then I was eventually released on the 12th of July, this date I've been waiting for, 2019, for like 7 years. That date came up and it came around quickly. And my key emotion was missing the lads that I've been on the wing with. Been on the same wing for 5 years. I was going to miss these boys. And people have been in prison for a long time. People that weren't going to get out of prison for a very long time. I'm going to miss them. They're all saying goodbye, wishing you well. That they want the best for you. even though they've got another 10, 15 years, they want the best for you. I felt really sad. But at the same time, I felt really glad because I'm going home. You know, I'm walking out of jail. And I got out and it was weird. It was like, it was what I was expecting without the emotion. So my oldest, he was 19. He's working in a local pub. So I'll take you down a pub, Dad, for a drink. I've not drunk in 7 years. So we'll have a drink. And I went,
no hooch, no.
never touched it.
You just went clean. Oh,
totally
fair
clean.
play to you.
Nothing, didn't touch a drop for 7 years.
Wow.
So I got there and he bought me a cider, West Country, standard.
How strange was that for you, being with your son who was a 12-year-old kid?
Yeah.
And now you're with your 19-year-old young man son who's buying you a beer, and you've got all those years and that distance between you, and there's more happening in the silence than you could even imagine. And
it was weird. I think the fact I was so detached emotionally may have made it easier, but the thing that happened to my oldest was he became emotionally detached because of what he's been through. As a coping mechanism, he's kind of like emotionally, he's taken that out of the equation. He's fine. He's a good lad. He's got a girlfriend now. He's settled. I'm proud of him. He's doing extremely well. Despite everything the world's going through, he's managing. He's focusing. But it was weird to have my little son, my 12-year-old straight 19-year-old, buy me a beer. And I couldn't finish the second one. He had to finish it off for me.
oh wow!
I had to have a lie down. It didn't take much. One bottle and I was done. So yeah, the drinking aside, it was good, it was needed. But my focus at the time was on my youngest, who was 12 or 13. He needed his dad back, and I wasn't there. I couldn't be that dad. So we were fighting with these emotions, and I thought, this is weird, it's difficult. And me and my sort of wife or ex went through the next few months, and we got to Christmas, and I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling it, and she wasn't feeling it either. And we spoke. In fact, I've been trying to come up to grow a pair just to say to her, look, I can't do this. And her being the braver out of the two of us and the stronger, she sat me down in January last year and said, look, I've been wanting to chat with you. I said, I'm glad you said that, because I've been wanting the same thing. I said, you go first. She said, shall we? I said, yes, let's call it a day. She said, oh, thank God, I've been feeling so bad. I said, oh, weight lifted from both our minds straight away.
Well, more power to her, because for those 7 years, I'm guessing she's been in there, and I mean, we know that she's taking care of business in the home and everything, but she's also hung in there for you.
Yeah.
You know,
she's provided stability for the boys. You know, the last thing they need was to see mum and dad split up. So she sacrificed 7 years of her life. So she's a good one.
So you were getting on for 50 then when you come out?
Yeah, 49. Yeah, 50 last.
And she's somewhere around the same.
She's 8 years junior.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so critical years then of her life as well.
Yeah, definitely. She gave up more than I did.
And like you say, all that stigma that gets attached to the people around you who weren't part to play, and the newspaper tabloid says this about your husband, and the people in the grocery store, and
seeing the people in the school playground, things like that. So we decided it was a good idea that it had run its course. We've been together 22 years at that point, albeit 7 of it I wasn't really there. So in real time, it was 22 years. We decided it's a good idea. Let's move on. We're both in this point of our lives where we can move on. We're both got enough left in us to find happiness somewhere else and provide a good, stable background for our 2 sons as good friends, which that's how it maintains, that's how it is. So we got divorced. So basically what happened, I think the person that she'd waited for, that went away in 2012, wasn't the same person that came out. I changed so much. You know, I'd gone through physically, mentally, and I still wasn't really in the room emotionally. So we got divorced divorce came through July last year. But just prior to that, I was sitting down with Cormac, the chap that does mental health with me, runs a charity called the Bridge Charity. And he works with something called EMDR, which if anyone doesn't know what it is, it's, I'm going to get it wrong, it's eye movement, desensitization and reprogram or reprocessing. It basically takes traumatic events and puts them back in the correct order in your brain, allows you to process it properly. So something which has gone on, like PTSD, which is traumatizing you, it makes it less traumatic. It works with any kind of trauma. He's been delivering this for quite some time, and he's been saying about the results, and he said, look, how are you? I said, I'm struggling. I said, in what sense? Well, to engage with my family emotionally, I can't do it. It's slow, but it's taking its time. I said, my hypervigilance is killing me. I can't help seeing enemies everywhere. I can't help but... I gave him an example. I did a review to my local gym on Facebook, and it said, what you just noticed you visited this place, what do you think? I was great, I loved it. It was a fantastic place. Staff are really friendly and a good gym. And somebody commented and said, what do you mean fantastic? I took that as a direct threat. Crazy as it might seem. So in my mind, I've gone to DEFCON 5 straight away. I'm already planning, in my mind, I'm planning a van. I'm planning a kidnap. Because I'm thinking, is he coming for me? Is this guy coming for me? He didn't. He just made a comment on Facebook. But I processed that as a threat because of what I've been through. If anyone makes a threat in that world, you've got to see it as an actual threat. No matter how random it might be or how minor it might be, I had to take precautions to protect my family. And that's where I was mentally. And it was just a random comment. But I was already thinking, I already sussed out where he'd lived. I'd gone through all his Facebook. I'd Googled his name. I found out details of the company, what I worked for.
It's a hell of a lot of high anxiety time doing all of that.
Yeah, and I'm planning. I'm already planning. I'm plotting defence, and then, if need be, attack. And I was already gone through everything in my mind. And I thought, I can't live like this. I can't do this. This guy's doesn't know what he's done. He's just said some flippant comment on Facebook. Yeah,
which is what they all are at this point. I think we've all worked out that kind of communication is just fucking mind-blowing, isn't it?
It's just random. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a comment. That's all. It's just words. But I saw it as a direct threat. A threat to me and my family. And I thought, I can't do that. I cannot live like that. That needs to be dealt with. So I spoke to Cormac and said, look, help. Do something with this vigilance, something with this anxiety and stress disorder. I need to deal with it. So he saw me in June last year. It's nearly a year ago. He got his apparatus out, came around to my house. I'm now living on my own in a little, funny enough, on the grounds of a prison. It seems weird. Layle Prison is local to me, and they sold off a plot of their land about 5 or 6 years ago. And on the back of the land there's some buildings which are converted to apartments. And one was for rent, and I thought, oh, that's perfect for me. It's in the countryside, in the middle of nowhere. I live there, but it's inside a perimeter wall. So my back garden is a wall. Again, I'm comfortable with that. I accept it.
The yard is the yard.
The yard is the yard, mate. I'm back on doing hard time again. So Cormac came round and got us a kit, and it's an incredible bit of equipment. It's just like a light bar. It's like an alien thing. It's like a T shape, and it's got a strobe light on the front. It's got these two little like pebbles in there, and they don't do anything for now. They said, right, sit down in front of this light. Simple thing. Think of your traumatic event. For me, it was people coming to the door. And there's something else, which I'm not going to say, but something else which bothered me, which triggered a lot of problems back in the past, a lot of repercussions. I had to get this out of my head. I had to get rid of it. That's where my anxiety came from. That's where it started. He said, do you remember your initial trigger? I said, yes, I do. He said, right, just think about that. Stare at this light. And the light went left to right, like hypnosis. It's right, keep looking at it and just keep thinking about this event. The light will get faster after a little while. Just keep thinking about the event. If anything comes to mind, let me know. Just see how it goes. And he kept doing this, and I was repeating this conversation I had with this person. It wasn't a conversation, it was pretty one way at the time. Repeating what he'd said. And after a few minutes, I couldn't hear this guy's voice anymore in my head. It was fading away. It was getting less and less. He said, how do you feel? I said, yeah, it's getting quieter. He said, did you see anything? I said, I saw a blue light on the right. He said, blue light? I said, yeah, I saw it. He said, that'll be your memory accessing something. He said, think about, what were you thinking when you saw the blue light? I said, oh, I think I remember. He said, right, think about that now. So we went through it again. Light's going faster this time. So I think about this again, these words. And after about 2 minutes, I couldn't remember what these words were. They just gone. I thought, what was I saying again? And it just disappeared. As you found out, so I can't remember what the guy was saying. So well, that's good. So now grab these two pebbles, and what they do is they vibrate. It sounds bad. In different hands, and they work in conjunction with this light going left to right. So that's accessing different sides of your brain, and it works exactly the right time with the light. So right, let's go through it again now. We did the same again with the pebbles, like vibrate. It's getting faster and faster. And think of these events, and he said, right, how do you feel now? I said, I can't remember anything about what happened. That's good. You got anything else? I said, yeah, the door. I got problems with the door knocking. Well, think about that. He said, what would someone normally knock at the door for? Well, they're going to come in on me, aren't they? It's going to be the police, or it's going to be someone trying to rob me. Well, think about that. I said, tell yourself, why do people come to the door normally? Deliver a parcel? Yes. So let's go on that one. So we did this again, and the same process with the lights and the vibrating pebbles, and all of a sudden the door knocking wasn't someone coming to kidnap me or steal money or arrest me. It was a guy from Amazon turning up with a parcel.
Of course.
Which is what happened.
Of course.
That's why people knock on the door, isn't it?
Yeah.
They don't come to kidnap
But
you.
I reckon that anxiety is kicking in now, though, for people as well. Fucking hell, he's here.
Yeah, definitely. So all of a sudden, after 40 minutes of treatment, all these anxieties have gone. The emotions have gone. Totally left the building. And the funny thing is, the following day, a friend of mine, because he knew I was off work because of getting this treatment, he came around to see where I was, and I wasn't expecting him. He knocked on the door. I just got up and answered it. Normally, I'd have gone straight for my baseball bat. But no, I just said, sorry, mate, how you doing? I said, I thought, shit, I just answered the door.
To this day, is it from that one session, you don't have repeat sessions?
No, just had the one session, totally fixed, no more. Anxiety is funny with me. I don't feel the emotion. I feel the physical effect of anxiety sometimes. I've not been stressed since that day.
I've not heard of that therapy
Yeah,
before.
it's incredible. He's rewritten a program. And I can't say what it is yet. He hasn't released it probably, but he's rewritten something, and it's incredible. I've not had any anxiety. I've not had any stress. I know that sometimes I am stressed, but I don't feel stressed.
Well, that's just part of this human condition, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. It is 40 minutes, I'm fixed.
That is.
I mean, I wouldn't have been able to go into I think 2 or 3 days later on, I suffered archive from welding, so I had to go to the eye hospital. It was during lockdown, we'd been unlocked at that stage. And I went out in central Bristol. I was waiting to get picked up. And there's an area where there's a load of people sat there just chilling out in the sun, maybe 100 people. And I had my headphones in, listening to music. And for the first time ever, I stood looking over a bridge at the river, with people behind me. I didn't care what was going on behind me. Normally, I'd have to stand there facing those people, or at least check them out every few seconds to make sure no one's coming or there's no threat. For the first time ever, I just listened to music and enjoyed the sunshine.
Is that threat predominantly coming from the criminal life or the military life, or a combination?
Combination. The military trained you to
be aware.
Be aware of the threat, to be constantly vigilant. The life I led, put it into practice for far too long. It was something which, if you're in the forces, you'll go on operational tour for 6 months. Back-to-back tours have shown problematic to people that suffer with PTSD because of back-to-back tours, being on hyper alert, being involved in organised crime. You're always half cocked. It's always like being on tour. So I think the practice from the army the training from the army put it into practice in organised crime. So I was basically on operational tour for 15 years, and that's how the mentality is ingrained in. But I was fixed after 40 minutes.
Jesus Christ, that's amazing. We have to look at that.
Yeah.
You also do a lot for vets. Again, as you've written the course, it's led to many, many different things. Let us know a bit about that, Rich.
Yeah, so the 2020 January, I went back to I was invited back to Oakwood a few times to talk on veterans events that we held there regularly on Remembrance Day. And the director said, come and see me in January, we'll have a chat and a sit down. The plan was, before I left, I sat down with him and the interventions, and first people said, look, we want you back in the prison. We want you to get you funding. We want you back in the jail. We want you to deliver this course. We want to be the first prison to do this course, because that's where it's born. That's where we'd like you. We want to help you on your way. So back in January last year, we sat down. They said, yep, we're going to put the application in. We're going to get everything arranged for you. And something called COVID-19 arrived and just seemed to stop it dead in its tracks.
Yeah.
So everything was in place. So up until the spring of last year, right through from July 2019 until, let's say, about February last year, I was delivering presentations. I was training SAFA caseworkers for the charity to go into prisons. I basically talked to them about what to expect when you go into a jail, this is what you're going to see. This is the problems you're going to face. This is what a prison's like. Be aware of this. So that was a presentation with Safa. I was going into bases, talking to troops. I was due to go into RF Cosford to start talking to their recruits about substance misuse. Just now, I've just got back in touch with the Prison Reform Trust about being part of a panel there, about talking about topics prison related, about people who've got what's known as lived experience. They want valued opinions from people like myself who've lived this world, and we can say from experience, not from an academic point of view, but from our hands-on point of view. Looking at a deal with Western-super-Mare College, talking to their learners about substance misuse. Everything was kind of just about ready to go, and then COVID sort of dropped it. Hasn't stopped it. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
No, I mean, like, it's just put the brakes on so much stuff that just doesn't seem to. It doesn't seem to add up, but that's a whole other podcast.
But everything's related in groups. It's all mass presentations. It could be done by Zoom, but it doesn't have the same impact.
Don't you do stuff with collecting in furniture and stuff like that and helping?
Yeah, so what I've got is there's a brilliant company. They've took me on from day one called We Like to Move It. Local firm, great name for a removals company. Everyone sings the song all the time. And they've been basically keeping me above water. And with them, they know that I've got other plans, and they always knew that it was going to be a short-lived thing. But they're very veteran friendly. And what they've done is said, look, we get situations where some people who are moving house are downsizing. So they may have furniture and stuff left over which they don't need. We can offer to take it off their hands for free, donate it to Project TLS, and we've got a furniture bank for veterans and their families. So if veterans move into a house and they need a wardrobe or a set of drawers or a fridge or anything, if we've got it, they can have it. We'll deliver it to them.
Amazing.
I set up a food bank with Greg's foundation. We were collecting unsold pasties and donuts and sandwiches, delivering that to veterans as well. We haven't done that for a while because the restrictions with COVID have kind of really shut it down a little bit because of contact. A lot of guys we delivered to were vulnerable and they were maybe on high risk, and they were shielding, so we kind of shut that down a little bit. But that's something we can look at again once things pick up again. So a number of things with the furniture bank and the food bank.
And how do you feel today in this stage of your life? How do you feel about your journey and the future? And
I'm really glad I'm alive to tell the tale. I wouldn't change anything for the world. I do have guilt about what I've done, how it's affected me kids. I'll be inhuman if I didn't. The way I look at it, I do a lot of TikToking, a crazy amount of TikToking. I've got a huge account on there, with thousands of videos.
Oh, we'll link this in then.
Yeah.
I'm unfamiliar with TikTok. It just seems like a crazy world that I won't even understand.
Nuts.
But
it's nuts. But you can really tap into a lot of people who are very keen on the journey.
Okay.
And through that, I think I've gained a lot through there as well.
Okay.
It's allowed me to get the message out there to talk to people. And I think I'm happy with how things are. And as I said, if I've taken this one for the team, for the veterans, if I'm willing to have taken this journey, if I know I can stop one veteran going to jail by listening to what I've gone through, that's for me, that's job done. I'm happy with that. If I can help one young lad or one young girl rethink a few things in their life about making certain decisions, I'm happy with that. And TikTok, social media has allowed me that platform to put it across. It doesn't stop me getting banned by them every 20 minutes from inappropriate content or from some uneducated troll deciding they don't like what I'm saying because they don't agree with it. But the weird thing about that app is you only get a little snapshot of one thing. You don't see the bigger picture. You have to see everything to understand what I'm trying to say.
Of course.
But yeah, I'm happy with everything so far, and I'm so chuffed the book's out.
Yeah, I was going to say, what did you find that to be like? Did you write that yourself? Did you have any help writing that? And what was that like as a process? Did that help to kind of box up that stage of your life?
Well, being a Scotty, I wrote it in crayons originally. I started writing it when I was on those home leaves.
Okay.
So when I was working in the visiting centre, again, I had access to a laptop, and I sat there, and again, if I'm sat there for a couple of hours, I thought, I'm not going to do nothing. The book was always a plan B. But if I get off of this trial and I get a not guilty, I'll thank everything I can thank, and I'll walk away and tell my family it was a horrible mistake, and I'll move on. If I get caught, go down, I'll probably do a book. And I thought about it for quite a few years while I was inside, and then when I started delivering these presentations to the police, to the military, and they said, "You thought about writing a book?" And it kept being said to me on a number of occasions, and I thought, I have thought about it, but I'm not telling anyone. The amount of times people said he thought about doing a book and I've already started it, I thought, I'm keeping it low, I'm not telling anyone about it because I don't want anyone to know, because I'm still inside and I can't protect my idea, I can't protect my story. So I started writing it it was spring 2018 while I still had another year and a bit to do. I got to about chapter 9, sorry. And I was due to get out in a few months. So I thought, I'm going to put the book on hold, focus on what's important, that's getting out, family, trying to get my emotions straight, which is struggling with, as we know. And I kind of really struggled with the book for quite a while. And then COVID stepped in and suddenly gave me time. And it gave me the opportunity to finish the book. And I was very lucky to meet a friend and a family who wrote a book called Call Sign Chopper, which is really good. He's ex-bodyguard for the president of Haiti. Okay. Hell of a story.
Wow, yeah. And
he said, well, I can put you into my agent. So I bumped into my agent, and he said, we can take the whole process before we get it published and get it out there. So I was really lucky.
Yeah,
really,
that's
really lucky.
amazing. That's amazing.
So it came out December last year.
And here it is down my camera.
So it's the first of
because I've heard you say this with Chris, yeah? So you've got 4 coming that are going to be sequential and paint a picture.
Yeah, I've started at part 2 and sort of in the middle when it's a bit lively.
Yeah.
I've got to do an audible version.
Oh, that's great news.
Yeah, in my own dulcet tones.
Oh, no, that'd be great.
So I'm going to fire that one out as soon as I can. Then I'm going to start part 3, which is going to be called Overseas Operation. So anyone's read the book, they'll see at the end it'll make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Going overseas to do certain things. Part 4 is going to be likely to be called Index. That's a military term for you have an exercise or you go on manoeuvres when you finish and it's all over. You hear that 3 times on the radio. It does what it says on the box. And then part 1's going to be a prequel. Going to be back to the day I left the army, sat on the bus stop in Germany waiting to come home, and it will show how, and we've heard today, how I ended up involved in crime.
Well, we've heard a phenomenal amount of your story today, and I'm so grateful for your time. You know, you've come a long way as well today, and I really appreciate that. And I got this, again, like I said, when I was watching you, when I came across you bought the T-shirt, you know, I felt like you weren't, there's a lot more going on with you. You're not, you know, we've heard a lot today, and I heard a lot with Chris, but there's a lot more as well. You know, and I'll be following your books, and maybe we'll do this again as well in the future.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool. What I would like to ask you, just to sort of finish on, and maybe you're out of touch at this point, I don't know, but talking about the guys and the vets now, when you talked about their being back-to-back on tours and so on, and like that hyper alert, obviously military approach is changing now. You know, hardware is becoming software.
Yeah.
Drones, you know, biotechnology. You talked about using essentially a cognitive therapy to retrain your brain to look at something different. That's something that's happening. Cognitive therapy, awareness, you know, tactical awareness, turning these guys, they're hyper to 20.
Yeah.
That makes for a great soldier. But
terrible civilian.
But doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, listen to what we've just gone through with you. Yeah. And now we're applying computer science and cognitive therapies and digital applications to the guys to make them even sharper, even sweeter, even. Yeah. So what does happen when we come out the other side now? Because what, in your opinion, could be improved with government taking care of, you know, squaddies who become civilians?
I think that the key thing there was this phrase that someone came out, and I can't remember who did it, so someone may or may not know, is when you take a weapon of mass destruction out of service, you decommission it, i.e. you make it safe. You remove the parts of that weapon which make it dangerous, i.e. the detonator, the explosives, the fire mechanism, anything else. At no point do they make a veteran safe. They don't decommission us in the way they should do. they don't take the part out of us, which is dangerous. The army is very good at training that part of you to become dangerous, but they don't decommission that. They don't focus on that aspect. They focus on transferable skills, as we said. They focus on employment. And there was an amazing major called Samantha Brettel, and she's focusing on things about leaving the army at the early stage of when they join. And she says, from the day they join, they think, this isn't forever. You are going to get out at some point, preferably healthy, intact. You need to have things like mortgages. You need to have your bills paid. You have to have a good credit. So they are bringing this in now, and I'm hoping now that the people that join in are going to be more aware of what life is like after the forces. So they are dealing with it, but there's this area of veterans that haven't had that. People that have joined haven't had that. And bear in mind, people that joined in the last, say, 10 or 20 years, they've had a lot of action. They've had back-to-back tours. They're coming out, they've got problems they're dealing with. So I think we've got a few problems on the horizon. A lot of veterans are going to be struggling. But I think once we get through that and these guys and girls are safe and they've integrated back into the community and they're not like a spare part, I think the people joining now will maybe in a slightly better position because they're much more aware of the problems we're facing. But there's always going to be people like me, activists who are trying to say, look, it isn't enough. Whatever you're doing, it isn't enough. And the trouble with veterans is the part of us that asks for help is trained out of us.
Yes.
They train it out of you. Said, don't be so weak. You can rely on the people around you. No, you can't. Not on Civvy Street, you can't. There's no disrespect to civilians, but we're just wired up differently.
Of course.
So there's going to be problems on the horizon, but I think in the long run, I think it will get better because we'll be more aware of the things we're facing. And it's becoming a different army. Like I say, it's becoming digitalised, becoming remote. Actual face-to-face combat may become a thing of the past. There's always going to be a soldier of some kind. So if we're attacking them with drones, they're attacking us with drones. It's going to case who's got the best drone. The army will become different. So it's going to be soft targets. Civilians will become the targets. So
that's what's really scary. But listen, the work you're doing is phenomenal. I'm really privileged to have you here today and hopefully get this across to some of our viewers. And, the book, obviously, we'll link everything in.
Thank you.
The Lost Soldier, Rich Jones.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time, brother.
No worries.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Peace.